Live visual update. Let's first. We are live. Hi, everybody. Good to see, glad to have you. Curio. Ray, good to see, glad to have you. Sarah, good to see, glad to have you. V, good to see, glad to have you. Ray, good to see, glad to have you. Out there, good to see, glad to have you. Good morning to you all. Yeah. So we're gonna do something today that I've been wanting to do for probably years at this point, but just never got around to it, which is we're gonna do Encyclopedia Eorzea reading, and I am also recording this in Audacity, so I will be able to turn it into an actual audiobook format. At some point, I'll put an actual just video on the channel that's just the reading of it. This is gonna be a little touch and go in terms of figuring out what our methodology is for doing it. My plan is to read it, and I have a PDF for E1 and E2. I suspect this will take multiple days, if not potentially weeks, to get through, which is fine, as this is a good chance to read it. My plan, I think, is to go through a page. Then if there's any questions or thoughts people have in chat, talk about it that way. One, because I don't want to interrupt in the middle of reading. Secondly, that will make it less of a nightmare to edit. Deathberry, good to see, glad to have you. Last boss, good to see, glad to have you. A little louder. How's the audio for other people? Because I can't boost myself too much, Ray. If I do, it will cause peaking issues in Audacity editing. I heard it's going to be Red and Goppy speak. No, see, now maybe that's an April Fool's Day stream idea. Yeah. Well, you know. In the moons before the calamity struck and ushered in the Seventh Emerald Era, Eorzea saw the rise of unlikely heroes who took up their blades to stave off impending doom. Something like that. Sounds good. Cool. Also, can I get a question? I currently obviously have no music playing. But would you guys like music playing? I just realized I probably don't for Windows. I'd have to figure out what I want to do for music. But let me know if you guys prefer music or no music. Yeah, we're going to take probably the next 5 minutes or so to do the little tweaks before starting to read. I have a PDF up here of Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1 that I will be scrolling down as we go through the sections. Right now, I have To the Sun playing. Let me know if that's more distracting or helpful. And Ray, am I still quiet? Because it may potentially be at some level then on your end more than mine. Because on my end I'm at halfway on the gain marker. But here I'll also do a little bit of tuning on this. How many of you guys have read Encyclopedia Eorzea? Either how many of you own it, how many of you have actually read it, and how many of you have actually read it like cover to cover? Because I know quite a few people who like, oh, they check it, but they haven't actually read it cover to cover. Okay. Like everything's good. Stream. How's the stream quality, by the way? Like, not blurry or anything? Okay. Own, but certainly haven't read cover to cover. Yeah, right. Good to see, glad to have you. I think that's probably the most people who own it. Understandably so, too. I mean, like, it's a dense book. It's just E1 alone is 300 pages. So I have it, but I keep meaning to read it cover to cover. I've just referenced it now again. Yeah. It's been many years since I've actually read it cover to cover. Let's scroll down. Now here's the question. Do I bother reading the inventory or index? Fuck it, let's just do the whole thing. It's better to have redundancies. I'm at full volume and I can barely hear you. I'm looking at my monitor, Ray, and literally I'm in the yellow for volume. So I'm trying to imagine what could be causing that. Do I sound particularly quiet to anybody else? Like, do I sound like... I'm at full volume, you sound fine. The music is definitely nice in the background. At the level it's not drowning you out. I do also have my headphones mixed to hear. Okay, cool. I'll turn it up at least a little bit. I just can't turn it up too high, because if I turn it up too high, it'll ruin the recording. Okay. We'll go with that. Own all 3 Encyclopedia Eorzeas and I've read them cover to cover. Nice, Lilia. Also, is that the first comment? No, I said there's good. I think that probably definitely puts you in the minority. Now, the question is how much do we retain when we read it all? Okay, quick. I'm going to do a test, right? Also, not that if I'm comfortable and happy with my performance, I'll go with that. But if anybody has any feedback, if they think I'm going a little bit too attempting to do audiobook reader rather than just talking, definitely looking for feedback as we go. Okay, let's go. Encyclopedia Eorzea. The inventory or index, containing the contents of 8 books touching the past and present of Eorzea. Preface. The first book, Hydaelyn. Page 7. Basic aetherology, page 8. Geography, page 12. Well, do I need page? Because I'll probably just have it, I'll just have it set up where I've got it timestamped in the video. Yeah, that's what I'll do. The first book, Hydaelyn. Basic aetherology. Geography, Hydaelyn and Zodiarch. The 12. The second book, her history. The history of Eorzea. The birth of an empire. The forgotten age. The age of enlightenment. The 6th astral era. Prosperity and progress. The root of consequence. A chronology of the 6th astral era. A realm reborn. A realm awoken. Through the maelstrom. Through the maelstrom. Defenders of Eorzea. Dreams of ice. Before the fall. Heavensward. As goes light, so goes darkness. The gears of change. Revenge of the Horde. The third book, her children. The Hyur, the Eozean, the Lalafell, the Mikote, the Rogadin, the Aura. The fourth book, her lands. Limsa Laminsa, Middle Lenosia, Lower Lenosia, Eastern Lenosia, Western Lenosia, Upper Lenosia, Outer Lenosia. Gridania, the Central Shroud, the East Shroud, the South Shroud, the North Shroud. Ul'dah, Western Thanalin, Central Thanalin, Eastern Thanalin, Southern Thanalin, Northern Thanalin, Mordona. Ishgard, Kurthus Central Highlands, Kurthus Western Highlands, the Dravanian Forelands, the Churning Mists, the Sea of Clouds, Azisla. Sharlayan, the Dravanian Hinterlands, Edelshire. Alamigo, the Garlean Empire. The fifth book, her servants. The Scions of the Seventh Dawn, the Adventurers Guild, Garland Ironworks, the Doman Refugees, the Doman Adventurers Guild, the Crystal Braves, the Sons of St. Koinak, Noah, the Red Bills, the agents of inquiry, the dragons, faces from journeys past, the Ascians, the warriors of darkness. The sixth book, specialized disciplines, paladin, monk, warrior, dragoon, bard, ninja, white mage, black mage, summoner, scholar, dark knight, machinist, astrologian. The seventh book, her burdens, the Amalja, Ifrit, the Ixal, Garuda, kobolds, Titan, the Sahagin, Leviathan, Sylphs, Ramu. I want to add and to that. The seventh book, her burdens, the Amalja and Ifrit, the Ixal and Garuda, kobolds and Titan, the Sahagin and Leviathan, Sylphs and Ramu, Mughals and Good King Mogulmog XII, goblins and Alexander, the Vanu and Bismarck, the Nath and Ravana, the Kakern, the Mamalja, Gigants, dragons and Bahamut, other primals, and the icons of the warring triad. The eighth book, her creatures, the bestiary, beastkin, seedkin, vilekin, wavekin, cloudkin, scalekin, spoken, forgekin, ashkin, soulkin, voidsent, elementals, and chimeras. Supplements, currency and measurements, whither the keys. Publishments of Eorzea, the deck of 60. Okay, boring part done. Okay. How was the audio so far for that test? Honestly, that was probably really good to have as a test. And also, feel free to ask questions as we go along. I will definitely get them to them after pages. They'll be useful to have as a break. And especially if anybody has any thoughts that they want to get to in specific to EE1. Voltaire, good to see you, glad to have you. I'm overheating a little bit. That was pretty good? Okay. Any better on the audio, Ray? Oh, yeah, no worries, Deathberry. I'm pretty sure most people will be lurking. Particularly a stream that is effectively an audiobook. Preface. Blessed by gods and forged by heroes. Comprised of Aldenard, the westernmost of the three great continents, and its surrounding islands, the realm of Eorzea has throughout history been a cradle of several unique civilizations. Towering mountains dominate the north, their peaks forever lashed with icy winds. To the south, a bleak expanse of unforgiving desert holds sway. Yet these inhospitable lands hold irresistible lure for man and monster alike. For wide and deep flow the currents of aether, and rich are the veins of power-infused crystals. Also, that technically, I think, comes after the preface. Note in editing, Blessed by Gods takes place after the preface. Preface. This encyclopedia is a labor of love, a love for Eorzea. It is a compilation of knowledge of our forebears, of their histories and legends, of their fables and folktale. It is a chronicle left by those who strove to unlock Eorzead's myriad mysteries, that all who followed might better understand this great realm. It is dedicated to those who call Eorzea their home, and to those who will do so one day. It is dedicated to those who would give their blood to see the realm preserved. It is dedicated to you, the reader, with hope that the knowledge contained within its pages will serve as a guide on our never-ending journey to a better tomorrow. Also, friendly reminder that this is a 9-year-old text. Also, I want to play Tom Berry's Tears. That's what I'm feeling right now. A new era. In this both harsh and vibrant region, the people of Eorzea have carved out their histories from within a cycle of prosperous, astral, and disastrous umbral eras. And though the land has but recently emerged from yet another age of decline, the 7th umbral era, the 7th umbral era, the skies remain dark on the eastern border. Oh, that was weird. On the eastern border, the Garlean Empire masses its troops for invasion, while the native beastmen tribes summon their deities, the otherworldly Primals. The threats facing Eorzea will not be easily overcome. The brightest burning candle. The life of an adventurer is the pursuit of fortune and the pursuit of fame. The devotion of oneself to seeking out danger and glory wherever they might lie. Only the most intrepid and dauntless of souls will endeavor to embark upon such a journey. It is not without warrant, then, to assume it will ultimately be an adventurer who steps from the shadows of obscurity to defend Eorzea from those who would see her harmed. That it will be his or her tale of bravery and daring that are sung by bards for ages to come. This adventurer, and every adventurer to have hitherto lived and died in our realm, are the true heroes of this story, Eorzea's story. Encyclopedia Eorzea, Book 1, Hydaelyn. Basic aetherology. Not only is aether the most basic building block of all creation, but also the life energy upon which the various schools of magic draw. Without knowledge of aether and how it works, scholars would understand significantly less about the world and its inner workings. Life and aether. Within all beings, whether it be man, animal, or even plant, does aether flow. It is the spark which grants life to the lifeless. Conversely, death can be said to occur once aether has left a corporeal object. From this, it is clear to see why many scholars use the words life and aether interchangeably. It can be assumed that a young man of sound mind and body will possess a high concentration of ethereal energy in his humors, whereas an older man, or one inflicted with corruption, will not. Some scholars have expanded upon this hypothesis, saying that the consumption of food serves not only to fill the belly, but to provide the body with aether lost through exertion. Aether is not by any means static. It consistently flows through creation, forming currents through earth, water, and air, which ensure that life is sustained through the world. The stoppage of these currents would be akin to the atrophication of a limb cut off from the heart. Aether is the lifeblood of Hydaelyn, and without it, she and her children would perish. The source of all magics. Manipulation of aether in a manner that deviates from its natural tendencies is what scholars call magic. While the various schools of magic, such as thaumaturgy and conjury, all employ differing methods to achieve this goal, the basic concept is the same. A similar yet more primitive type of ethereal manipulation can be seen in non-sentient beings. A raptor breathing fire, or a beast generating a levin-like shock, are all examples of lesser-born creatures utilizing the aether within their bodies or available from the nearby environment to hunt or protect themselves from harm. There exists some objects which are believed to toe the line between organic and inorganic. Gems being one example. Arcanists tip the scales in favor of life by drawing aether into the stones, the result being creatures known as carbuncles. David, good to see you, glad to have you. And yeah, I'm hoping that the putting I know that there are other people who have done readings, but putting more versions of an audiobook version of the Encyclopedia Eorzea is out will help the player base, one, people who can't afford the book, but secondly, the player base broadly be able to either check elements that they have and that they would like to, or also just have a better understanding of aetherology, because in general, it's really worth pointing out that the MSQ does a pretty phenomenal job of typically, even while introducing some new concepts, building upon stuff that has been present for well over 10 years. So, yeah. So, Mimi, good to see you, glad to have you. Came to say hello, even though I probably can't stay long. No worries, no worries. We're just making our way through bit by bit. But yeah, if anyone has any thoughts or questions as we go along, please feel free to put them in the comments. I will be checking the comments. I will be checking the chat around after every page. But yeah, cool. I'm gonna check my audio real quick in Audacity. Make sure everything's good. Audio looks good. Cool. Also, there are a lot of like plot reveals, for instance, in the MSQ, that if you don't study the Encyclopedia Eorzeas or like pay very close attention to like aetherology and fundamental information in the game, could be reveals to you. And the game does a good job of explaining them at the time. An example would be Monteshane's conversation with you about the soul and corporeal and incorporeal aether in Endwalker. The game explains these things very thoroughly when you need to understand them. However, the fundamental knowledge conveyed in many of these scenes is actually present much earlier in the game. It's just easy to either miss, not remember, not have paid and look closely. There's very little information that the Encyclopedia Eorzeas have that is not present in the game. They are not like texts that are required to understand things. What they more are really is a collation of a lot of the information in game into a specific singular text. Yeah. Only one book myself, and I haven't meant to read it, and I've meant to read it at some point. Yep, David, we're talking about it at the beginning. I think a lot of people are in a similar camp there. Okay. This is the 6 elements. Ethereal energies can be divided into 6 distinctive elements: fire, wind, lightning, water, ice, and earth. These elements provide nature with aspects that govern how they act in the world. For example, a region where ethereal currents are aspected towards fire will generally be hotter and drier than a region featuring primarily ice-aspected currents, a region likely to be characterized by frigid climes. The same can be said for the flora and fauna that populate an area. Seedkin aspected towards wind can navigate the skies as if they were winged cloudkin. Scalekin aspected towards earth will exhibit lithified skin, protecting them from sharp-fanged predators. In addition to the 6 elements, there also exist 2 poles, astral and umbral, which greatly influence the nature of the elements. An astral charge bringing more activity, while an umbral charge resulting in more passiveness. For example, when in an astral state, fire exhibits high volatility, whereas its umbral state is characterized by dryness. Fire, wind, lightning, water, ice, earth. Interelemental relationships. Scholars have long known about the relationship of the elements. These characteristics, documented in the ancient tome Essence and Permutations, a treatise of the 6 elements. Ooh, this is gonna be a little harder to read. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to... The cursive is a little bit weird on this. The 6... I can't tell if it's an archaic word or if I'm just having a hard time reading it. Give me a second. No. Unless that's an F. Okay, I'm just going to read this as it looks because it's a little bit wonky, but we're going to go with it. Okay. The six Nivetir. The six Nativitir and myriad creation. The spark of lightning ignites when it is strike. The spark of lightning ignites when it is stripped. Oh, I can't. My God, the cursive is tiny. The spark of lightning ignites when it strikes, and thus fire is born. The beat of fire renders all to ash that it touches, and thus earth is born. The density of earth shuns. I'm going to see if anyone has. I'm fairly certain I remember one of the wikis. Actually, someone did write this down because it is stylized to high hell. Usually I can read cursive just fine, but it is tiny. Here, I'll take a second to read. To confirm, is there an astral umbral alignment for each element? Yes. So imagine astral and umbral is polarity. So imagine that there's the 6 elements, and do you see how there's a triangle in the 2 triangles in there? That's because lightning, those are implying the polarities, effectively. So you have what is, imagine astrality as a positive charge and umbrality as a negative charge. So you have the elements, and then they can all either have a positive or a negative charge. That's effectively all astral umbral really is, if you want to simplify it. Yeah. Frankly, the copyrighted material, from my knowledge, there's no official PDF version of the book, and this doesn't look like on either, and even it would be of no rights to share. Doppel, so just so you're aware, if you take one of your own copies of a book, and you tear it apart, and you photo scan it, you can do that. That is legal. So, just to be clear, that is not. You're incorrect. Well, good to see you. Glad to have you. Voltaire, thank you for the 20 memberships. Hope you all enjoy your emotes. Astrologian plus. Well, no, because okay, so that's so there's astral, like, which is like a specific polarity, and in the case of astrologian, it's astral as in the stars, right, as opposed to light, right? But yeah, well, I guess astral is darkness, but yeah. I mean, in theory, you could have an umbralogian by dint of being a shadow mancer, divining from the shadows. It's a joke unless Geomancer. Yeah, well, one things you'll find if you hang around is, like, generally people will make offhanded joke comments, and I'll just, like, completely straight value, like, okay, let's, how do we look at that within the confines of lore? Yeah. Geomancer is, yeah, because Geomancer is effectively you're using the energies of a star. It's just the stars beneath your feet rather than the stars of the sky. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to come back to the 6 elements. Note for editing. Come back to the 6 elementals when you have time to translate, hand scribe the cursive into separate categories. Thanks, Will. Yeah, friendly reminder. So, for those who don't know, I buy multiple copies of these because I can for work. So, if you make a PDF because you tore apart your own copy, like, that is within the bounds. Also, if you're really going to give me shit because I'm trying to, like, let me put it this way. I'm going to say this outright here, and fuck it. I guess I didn't think this would be controversial, but if I have bought not only all of this and multiple books, which in and of itself gives me no right. That's not inherently giving me a right. But, like, people don't buy E1 just because they absolutely need the knowledge. They buy it because it's a cool book, they love it, they want to read it, and all this stuff. This knowledge and sharing it with people as far as I'm concerned, is an unalloyed good. And there is a very big difference between propagating and sending a PDF of this out to everyone and anyone and decreasing Square Enix sales versus providing a resource that for a lot of people will be their fundamental way to get into it, and for some people will be a reason for them to buy the book. Because they will either find out about it or think this is very cool or would like to be able to read it themselves, or this book is a freaking amazing, like, lovely piece of work that is embossed and just... But then there's also people, like me for most of my life, who would not have been able to read this or access this information at all if someone didn't do this. So, to be frank, if you're going to come in here and comment something like that, I think, one, I can prove that you're legally wrong from the standpoint of the personal use. But secondly, like, that's kind of dickish. It's basically saying people... I want to be very careful, because I think there's a difference between saying people should have access to whatever they want versus, like, within reason, being like, hey, providing something like this and going to this credit is of value. I'm glad I got to say that earlier on and did that now rather than later. There's a just very fundamental difference of kind in those two things. Okay, back to reading. I'm going to do a clap here just for audio for me to be able to know to edit. Come back here and edit this part out. Crystals. When a living entity dies, the aether remaining will normally leave the body and return to the world's ethereal currents, also known as the life stream. When a living entity, however, experiences death-inducing trauma, such as a mortal wound in battle, the resulting sudden release of its most heavily aspected life energies will oft-times manifest corporeally before it can return to the life stream, a phenomenon we know as crystals. This can also occur when a wound is dealt to the very land itself, and is a reason why crystal deposits are found throughout the land. The elemental aspects of the energy trapped in these crystals can be harnessed and used in a myriad of manners. Applying fire crystals to a forge can increase its internal temperature, assisting in the smelting of ore. The cooling properties of an ice crystal can assist in a grocer. The cooling properties of ice crystals can assist a grocer in maintaining the freshness of meat or produce. That said, due to the extreme concentration of aspected aether within a crystal, direct consumption of a crystal by a living being can severely alter the ethereal balance within its body, ultimately resulting in severe injury or even death. The Twin Realms. Aetherologists believe that existence occurs on two separate but overlapping planes. The corporeal realm, or realm consisting of objects within the basic physical or realm consisting of objects with basic physical properties, and the ethereal realm, more namely a realm without substance, but containing the essence of all creation. When an item in the corporeal realm dies or is destroyed, its aether passes back into the ever-flowing currents of the ethereal realm, sometimes referred to by the lay term the life stream. When something new is born in the corporeal realm, it is granted life with energy from the life stream. Thus, a natural balance is maintained between the two worlds. Each plane exerts influence on the other, the proximity of the two determining the scope of that influence. In places of close proximity, the ethereal plane exerts a great amount of influence on the corporeal plane, and vice versa. The corporeal plane benefits from this proximity by becoming rich in ambient aether, something that promotes life and growth. Conversely, locations where there is a distance between the corporeal and ethereal planes are thought to suffer from harsh climes and be characteristically void of life. If for some reason one plane were to become irreparably damaged, the other would also suffer, leading to the eventual collapse of both. Ethereal travel. As was stated above, when the planes draw close in proximity, they equally exert influence over each other. We have already given an example of how the corporeal plane benefits from this influence, but what of the ethereal plane? One manner of measurable influence is how corporeal will can be maintained while in a state of pure aether. This ultimately allows for the travel of corporeal beings through the ethereal plane without the loss of ties to the being's own plane. In simple terms, it renders possible the phenomenon commonly known as teleportation. Magics are wielded to reduce a body and will to its ethereal components and cross over into the ethereal plane. While there, the will of the host is maintained, allowing him to travel almost instantaneously to other locations in the plane, where he then crosses back, regaining his corporeal form. To accomplish this, however, the host requires special beacons that point the subject where he needs to be. Aetherites, massive concentrations of crystallized aether, serve as the beacons, most often appearing in areas where the corporeal and ethereal planes are the closest. These areas are already teeming with life because of this proximity, which is why centers of population can be found near Aetherites. Without these beacons, an ethereal will would merely drift in the lifestream for eternity, slowly breaking down into the most basic form of pure aether, until Hydaelyn gave those particles new form. Historically, settlements have been established around existing deposits of aetherite, areas teeming with life due to their proximity to the ethereal plane. However, the Sharlayans, despite a lack of comprehension regarding the process involved, have succeeded in applying technology from previous ages to the construction of portable aetherites, which can be placed in almost any location. Page done. Harkens back to the library classes of yore, and I'm here for it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, people read books over YouTube all the time. Yeah, to be fair, a lot of those books are usually in the public domain, so there's a grayer area to that, but there's still just like not really an argument. Also, it's kind of a little bit of an asinine point besides, because there have been readings of Encyclopedia Eorzea on the internet for at least 5 years, if not more. Thank you, Elliot, for keeping me sane at work. Words to carry me through the day. Yeah, good to see. Glad to have you, dear. No problem. Okay. 40 minutes in, and we're 11 pages. So that's a good gauge. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna wait for the 40, and then I'm gonna start this page because I'm curious, page by page, how time I should expect. Hydaelyn. Some scholars in the field of aetherology further believe that somewhere, deep beneath the land, slumbers a mass concentration of ethereal life energy. These aetherologists refer to this phenomenon as the mother crystal. Still, some take this hypothesis one step further, stating that the existence of a mother crystal proves that the planet itself is alive, and represents a hitherto unclassified biological entity. To support this theory, they point to the oracles and heroes of ancient history who claim unexplainable visions of the future or unnatural strength to overcome impossible odds. The scholars believe that it is through these visions the planet is conveying messages to those she entreats to aid her. With the reoccurring themes of Hydaelyn's will or the will of light, which appear in the myths and folklores of seemingly unrelated civilizations as proof of this belief. The Ethereal Sea. The focal point of Charlean academia has forever been to understand and predict Hydaelyn's fate. One intriguing fact that their scholars have uncovered is that the deeper into the planet's core one ventures, the more blurred the border between corporeal and ethereal realm become, leading aetherologists to believe that if one were able to travel deep enough, they may be able to witness and examine the ethereal realm, while maintaining their corporeal form. An attempt by the Charleans to test this hypothesis was put into motion with the construction of the Antitower near the Charlean city-state in the Dravanian hinterlands. Built deep beneath the surface of Hydaelyn, the tower focused aether into powerful magics, which pried open a window to the ethereal realm, giving mankind its first ever view into the Pleroma and beyond. Direct contact with the Mother Crystal was the next step in Charlean's research, before the scholars were forced to flee Eorzea following the Garlean Empire's invasion of the realm. Primals. Arcanists have devised methods of tapping into their own ethereal energy to create semi-sentient, yet fully loyal familiars. This, however, is not the sole method available for drawing forth an animate being from the aether. A second method involving the combining of corporeal ethereal energy, usually amassed in crystallized form, with spiritual ethereal energy, usually represented in the form of faith, prayer, or willpower, in an elaborate summoning ceremony, has, in recent years, grown increasingly common amongst the beast tribes of Eorzea. Using this method, powerful godlike beings known as Primals can be brought to manifest, allowing them the opportunity to enforce their will on the land. The name Primal is derived from the beast tribe's belief that these creatures are deities from which their people originate. In addition to Primal, the beings have historically also been known as Icons by both the Allegan and the Garlean empires, who were adamant in their dismissal of the creature's deific status. Once a Primal has gained a corporeal form, the creature will oft, as a boon, offer protection to or empower those who summoned it. With corporeal manifestations complete, a Primal can also project its own internal aether upon other weak-minded beings, corrupting their hearts and minds, effectively creating obedient followers. This tempering can prove a Primal's greatest weapon, meaning even a victory against one of the creatures will not be had without great sacrifice. And even these victories are short-lived, as once enough crystals are gathered and another ceremony performed, the demigod can be resummoned, as if it never were defeated. Finally, in addition to the chaos wrought by the beings themselves, the very act of summoning can have adverse effects on the land. The aether required in summoning and maintaining of the creature's corporeal form will, without fail, draw over much from the surrounding environment's life energies, turning once lush areas into wastelands, and disrupting the very balance of the world itself. Tempering. Those tempered by a primal eventually lose nearly the entirety of their wills, leaving only shells that bend to the whims of the beast who hollowed them. Men in this state will give their own lives as easily as they would their names, if it is but the wish of their new master. Not only do these mindless followers provide a formidable army, but also provide the faith needed to resummon the primal, should the being ever lose its corporeal form. Countless attempts, both magical and scientific, have been made to restore a tempered mind to its original state. However, all have ended in failure. The only known cure for this manner of ethereal brainwashing being death. While even a single exposure to a primal's aether can tear apart a victim's mind, multiple exposures can lead to an eventual degradation and transformation of his body. Leviathan's drowned followers have been reported to exhibit physical features more commonly associated with wavekin, while Ramu's touched sylphs will grow extended beards. Note, proof of this final claim is, at the current moment, severely lacking. In the years leading up to, as well as those directly following the calamity, a great number of primals were reportedly summoned by the Eorzean beast tribes in desperation to protect the peoples from the Garlean Empire. Some believe this, coupled with the general resurgence of beast tribe activity, are why the realm still remains in a state of disarray. Okay, so that was about 5 minutes for a page, but it was a dense page, so that's understandable. Good to see you. Glad to have you, Penny. Also, friendly reminder, I have 2 copies of every one of the Encyclopedia Eorzeas, so this is not just reading off of the PDF. PDF is for you guys. Geography. There exists 3 main landmasses in Hydaelyn, the largest being that which contains the 3 great continents: Aldenard, Ilsabard, and Othard. The following sections touch upon the locations, geographies, and climates of those areas. Also, friendly reminder that this came out in 2016. This was released in the middle of Heavensward, so from a lore standpoint, everything in here would be only what was known by at that point in time. Also, I cannot recommend highly enough that you buy these books. They are incredibly lovely if you have the extra currency, and you can get them off of Amazon. They used to not have them reprinted. For a long time, there was just no way to get a hold of them. But a couple of years back, or a year or 2 back, they reprinted them, and they've still been broadly available, and they are fantastic. The 3 great continents. Situated in Hydaelyn's northern hemisphere and stretching from the polar region almost to the equator, the 3 great continents consist of Aldenard in the west, Ilsabard in the north and center, and Othard in the east. So great is the distance that even the fastest of trader vessels carried by favorable winds require at least a fortnight to make the journey from Old Sharlayan to Vilbrand, and another 2 moons to travel from there to Doma. Regional folklore has that Aldenard, Othard, and Ilsabard were once brothers whose hearts were so filled with love for one another they remained inseparable for countless eons. One day, however, did the brothers Othard and Ilsabard grow jealous of Aldenard, for despite being the youngest, he was blessed with the richest of lands. In a violent fit of anger, the brothers pulled themselves away from their younger sibling, to where they stand today. Aldenard's outstretched hand clinging to Ilsabard's coattail is one last final effort to bring him back. That's sad. Also, that's a really it's been a while since I got to, so that is a actual clarification on how much time passed. So from Old Sharlayan to Vilbrand, and another 2 moons to travel from Vilbrand to Doma. So it's 2 months. If you're wondering how long the travel from when we leave Lenosia to go through the Siren Song Sea and get to Kugane and Hingashi, that should be 2 months, according to this, if we assume that this is correct. Which means that we have at least a little bit of time scale for that. Interesting to know. In fact, I'm gonna put up notes. No. Page 12. Okay. Interesting. Aldenard. Aldenard. Westernmost of the 3 great continents, Aldenard is most commonly grouped with Vilbrand, the Cialades, and countless other small islands to form the realm known as Eorzea. Compared to other regions in Hydaelyn, Eorzea is believed to harbor a far greater concentration of ambient aether, making it well suited to maintain a thriving ecological system. Drawn to the fertile land and abundant fauna, mankind has long held a presence in Eorzea, and it is from here that many of history's greatest civilizations have risen. However, this abundance has also led to strife, and the wars to control the realm have seen many of those self-same civilizations fall. Eorzea is currently governed by 4 independent city-states: Gridania, ruling the interior forests of the Black Shroud, the Sultanate of Ul'dah, ruling the southern deserts of Thanalin. Did we skip over Lenosia? Oh no, wait, that's weird. That does the last. The Holy See of Ishgard, ruling the northern highlands of Kurthis, and Limsa Lominsa, ruling Lenosia of the southwestern island of Vilbrand, as well as the neighboring seas. Little more than 2 decades ago, there was an additional pair of city-states, which shared Eorzea with the aforementioned 4, Sharlayan and Alamigo. The former, however, was abandoned by its inhabitants out of fear when the Garlean Empire invaded. Aldenard from the north and occupied Alamigo. Fun fact, originally, I think in 1.0, you were originally supposed to be able to start in any of those starting cities. So, like, it ended up just being Limsa, Lominsa, Ul'dah, and Gridania. But originally, it was supposed to be Sharlayan was the place you could start, Alamigo was the place you start, and Ishgard was the place you start. That's why there's so much, like, Ishgard stuff still in 1.0, even though, like, you can't go there. And yeah, why there's so much pre-built Sharlayan and Alamigan lore existing even before 2.0, despite the fact that they're, like, not a part of the story. And the dev said the AR to Endwalker was only 1 year. Whoa. When did they say that? Because every time I've heard that quoted, the only example I've seen to imply that doesn't say that. So when did they specifically say? If you're going to make a claim about timelines, you better have a primary source. Because there's multiple implications in Dawn Trail that's been 3 years. That's still circumspect, like, it's still very circumspect about that. Like, I wouldn't even make a claim, but I would make a best guess. Can you state the exact quote? I don't think I found their exact quote. Yeah, I've never been able to find an exact quote that did anything but possibly imply that it's something like that. Yeah, okay. Forgive me for breaking the audiobook for a moment. I need a tangent. Stop, to all of the 14 community, stop playing telephone. Just because you hear someone say it, if they can't actually provide you the interview or the text from the game, don't quote it to other people. I beg of you. I've so much misinformation in the 14 community because someone says something and someone just repeats it without checking it. Yeah, it's been crazy lately. I'm not saying they didn't say that. I'm just saying, please, if you're gonna say something like that, have a primary quote. Yeah, because as far as we know, the official stance is time bubble. That is the official stance. There is no 1 year, 4 years. We can guess that it's not been 4 years because of Elezen puberty. Because specifically they go out of their way to point out in Shadowbringers that 20 is incredibly late for having an Elezen growth spurt, and the twins technically haven't had their growth spurt yet. They kind of have been doing it incrementally in some ways. But the... and we know the twins are 16 at the beginning of A Realm Reborn. We know that. And we know that 20 is incredibly late. That's when Urianger had his. So we can guess it's been less than 4 years. That's basically the best we can do. Yeah. Yeah. Cite source in MLA format. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of citing sources, if you ever want to find a primary text from the game, V or Ray, if either of you are up, if you could put a link to T-Tools. T-Tools is a website that we created. Well, V did all the work, really. I basically just came up with the idea. That you can type in any word into it, and it will find every instance of that word in the MSQ. Or sorry, in the game, not just the MSQ, in the game. And you can select by expansion, you can set it up. So if you are wanting to find specific information, there are times where the, like, how something is said, as opposed to what you heard, can greatly change the example. A great example, well, actually, I don't have a great example of this off the top of my head, but just all sorts of, like, nuanced topics, things like the Blessing of Light, right? The specificity of language does matter, right? So. Okay. I'm going to do a little clap. Ilsabard. Positioned between Aldenard and Othard, the continent of Ilsabard is characterized by extreme temperatures and unpredictable weather. The northern territories located beyond Ilsabard's dividing central mountain range are oft regarded as some of the harshest environments on Hydaelyn, with several coastal communities made to endure unforgiving storms in the summer and frozen seas in the winter. This has ultimately impeded the advancement of civilization, forcing people to instead exhaust their resources to simply survive. However, 50 years ago, civilization on Ilsabard took a significant leap when, through science and ingenuity, the small northern nation of Garlemald started an uprising which would eventually change the entire face of the three great continents, the Magitech Revolution. After quickly toppling several nearby nations, the Garleans, now an empire, set their sights on warmer climes, and led their armies across the mountains and into southern Ilsabard, an area known to Eorzeans as the Near East, and proceeded to conquer all in their path, until nearly the entirety of the continent was annexed and absorbed. Othard. Othard, or the Far East, as it is commonly referred to by those living in the West, is the smallest of the three great continents, yet much like Aldenard in that it is comprised of a main landmass and countless islands off its coast. While Othard is longitudinally situated farther south than Ilsabard, the towering spires which line the region's northern borders are covered in snow year-round, and the land beyond them is permanently frozen. From these mountains trickle down the waters which give Othard life, eventually forming the One River, the longest and widest watercourse in all of the three continents. This river passes through the great swath of grasslands in which the Auri-Zela clans live before winding through Yanxia, a fertile land that until the recent invasion by the Garlean Empire was controlled by the nation of Doma. Though connected geographically for thousands of years, little interaction has taken place between Ilsabard and Othard, the main reason being a combination of near impassable mountain ranges and deadly wastelands, which severely restrict all land routes. While coastal cities have experienced limited contact with the outside via trade, the overall isolation of Othard has allowed local cultures to evolve, with little to no influence from the West. Only in the past 2 decades have things begun to change, the advent of airship technology thrusting open the once closed doors of the Far East. However, this new exposure also served to alert the power-hungry Garleans of new territory ripe for the plucking, and it was not long before the Empire had set their sights on Doma and Dalmasca, two nations which have since been brought under the Imperial standard. Snowbia, good to glad to have you. Yes, it is a wonderful resource, and it looks like I think Ray and V might neither be here currently, so I will link T-Tools. It is a fantastic resource. I use this to make sure I'm quoting primary texts all the time. This is the link for T-Tools. One thing I would recommend is that if you search full sentences or multiple words, it is going to give you search each of those words unless you put it in quotations. Yeah. Jojo, good to glad to have you. Great timing. I just ordered the first 2 books for the price of 1. Hey, secondhand. Nice. Perfect. Yeah, David, the reason in making videos, it is very important to me that I am never citing or using justification that is not rooted in a primary text within the game. And it was very difficult to find certain texts. So like what happens when you have a fate, right? That had something interesting that might kind of imply this one thing about like Ishgard in this one's very specific way, but then you need to get that fate to pop in Western Kurthis, and it takes you 20 minutes just to do that, and you just want to get the note so you can go so I can just go keep working on the script, right? So T-Tools was made in order to be able to have people be able to search that. You just posted what? Put a 3 at the end of the. Sorry, not sure what you're referring to, Petty. Just so you know, though, if you're not a mod, you can't post links. Again, I want to remind people as we go through that knowledge from this is only what would have been available to people in universe as of Heaven's Word. So it's important that this is an in-universe text, and therefore don't expect. This is only within the confines of that. You will also find information that, because it's in universe text, you will find suppositions and thoughts that are factually known to be different at the time of like when it came out by certain people, but other people didn't know that. So it's not like there aren't like retcons or anything in here. But like an example would be Gale Cats. Like there's speculation because the whole point about the taxonomic section is that it's kind of all arbitrary. Fundamentally the system's arbitrary anyways. There's a lot of speculation on the nature of like why is a chocobo that can't fly a cloudkin if it's because originally yellow chocobo couldn't fly, it was only black chocobos. Why is a yellow chocobo a cloudkin even though it can't fly and it's beaskin? Like, stuff like that. I love it with all the lore they pepper, and then reference 14 content creation absolutely needs the resources. Yeah. No, it definitely needs the resources. It needs the resources so more people can make stuff. It needs the more resources so that, to fight access. There's very, broadly speaking with lore in 14. I won't speak to anything in specific, but like broadly speaking, I don't think there's a lot of people like intentionally ever providing misinformation in lore content creation. But I do think that when people play something and they go from what they read and thought versus actually looking at the primary text, there's a lot of disconnect there. Like we tend to see, I think I'm guilty of this too. This is not anti anyone, but like there's a lot of, if you aren't careful, you can end up with 1 + 2 = 4 instead of 3. Penguins are birds, yet they can't fly, so I didn't even question chocobos. Yeah. I remember that all the Encyclopedia Eorzeas are in universe texts. Okay, minor clap. Thavnair. To the south of Ilsabard lies a great sea known as the Bounty. The abundance of sea life, combined with its central location in relation to the 3 great continents, has historically seen civilizations on the islands of the Bounty thrive, even during the calamitous umbral eras. Well, not exactly true for the South Sea Isles, but the most prominent of those civilizations would have to be that of Razat Han, located on Thavnair, the Bounty's largest landmass. an ancient city-state with a history stretching back thousands of years. Razat-Han is best known as the birthplace of modern alchemy. It is interesting to note that despite having a very limited outward military presence, the city-state has succeeded in forging a non-interference treaty with the Garlean Empire, ensuring their independence while mightier nations fall about them, and as thus, Razat-Han remains an active hub for trade between Eorzea. However, it has been noted by some that the treaty was only formed so that Garlemald could obtain items from Eorzea via Thavnair, as official trade between the regions was frozen after the Empire's failed invasion 20 years past. Yeah, I was just checking a lore note for that from Timeline, because someone had a question about specifically when Hingashi's non-intervention pact with Garlemald began, and as far as we can tell, we know that their neutrality began after the fall of Doma, but we don't actually know when the non-intervention pact began. Since it's a universe written, I'm curious with how anything with Ancients is done. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to pull up EE3 for a second, just to make this point. So all the information that is regarding the Ancients is, remember that is that a lot of the same way that there's information about the Warrior of Light's escapades within the confines of Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1, everything involving the Ancients is done either with what the Sharlayans are, mainly with what the Sharlayans are made aware of thanks to the Warrior of Light and the Scions of the Seventh Dawn reports. So even as recent as patch 7.3, you'll note that like certain characters were writing detailed reports about what took place during Dawn Trail, right? Those reports are kept and read by people like the students of Baldessian, certain Sharlayan members. So while information about the Warriors of Light escapades are sometimes held back and sometimes kept private, they are given to some people, and also while that information doesn't fully disseminate out straight into the world, like what's a good example? So like, yeah, all the information within the confines of pages. Oh, hi, baby girl. Getting my, Keone, my cat, is laying on the, beanbag over in the corner. From pages, like, 6 to, 20-ish in Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 3, they go to lengths to point out that the information was acquired by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Before too long, we'll also see that pop up in EE1, if I'm not mistaken. Here, you know what? Let me even read a primary. Yeah, so like in the Ascian section, according to recent research by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, there is proof that the calamities once believed to be natural occurrences were actually triggered by the crooked schemes of the Ascians. So that's where that information comes from. Basically, you won't find a lot in terms of what the Warrior of Light wouldn't have experienced with that information, because actual research into it beyond what the Scions of the Seventh Dawn have done is limited to non-existent for the most part, because there's not a really easy way to study the ancient world, particularly on the source, where there's very little, if any, ruins. Because most of the ruins on the source are believed to have been destroyed by the calamities. Okay. Clap. Actually, I'm gonna change the music real quick. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's do... Let's do the 1.0 Hydaelyn theme. I love, this is one of my favorite songs. Seems obvious now that you pointed out. But the Warrior of Light must have been heavily questioned for any info by the Sharlayans. Yep, and we know emphatically it's shown at least in 7.3, and I know there are other examples of this, that the Scions write highly detailed reports about all of everything that goes on in the MSQs. And I'm fairly certain it's save for examples where they want to not tell about it. Like the information is kept hidden intentionally. Even side content, so aspects of Eureka were disclosed, but not everything about Eureka. Aspects of Binding Coils were disclosed, but not everything about Binding Coils. If I'm not mistaken, that's why there's a relative I need to double check this real quick. I want to check this. And also, forgive me for these tangents. They help me long-term store the information in my head. It's not so much that I'm getting distracted as it's useful for me to like practice looking into things that I think are correct to make sure I can disprove them if I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot about coils in E1 if I remember right, because from a lore standpoint, it mainly they don't. There's very little that they want to be known. My tangents are what I'm here. Is the music too loud or anything? We go with the music? I'm pretty sure you still wrote report for the forum and Charlene and Walker patches as well. Yeah, Alta, I'm fairly certain you're right. Sarge Buyer, they've gotten event typewriters one day. This they did not basically say that during 7.3. Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, next up is the is definitely not where we're going for 8.0. I say that, but there's a very solid chance that 8.0 is either another reflection or alternate timeline or something. But no, I suspect that the most reasonable choice for 8.0 would be Mericidia. Far to the south of the three great continents, beyond the equatorial lines, lies the second of Hydaelyn's three landmasses, Mericidia. 5 millennia ago, at the close of the third astral era, the Allegan Empire, unsatisfied with controlling merely Aldenard, Ilsabard, and Othard, set their sights to the south, and began an invasion that would end with nearly the entire continent being rendered a wasteland. While some areas remain uninhabitable even today, those which have been repopulated remain reclusive, and very rarely welcome contact with the civilizations of the Northern Hemisphere, oft-times attacking any who approach, whether it be by sea or by air. Because of this, very little of the region is known, including even the most basic of geographical information. How happy was I? I mean, I won't go into, we're not going to talk about 7.3 at all in any kind of detail, but here's the thing I will say about 14's patches. 14's patches have constantly delight me, but for the better part of at least all of Endwalker and Dawntrail, since I have effectively been full-time making lore content, I have always been able to call a minimum of 60% and a maximum of like 90% of a patch of what's going to happen. And usually what I'm wrong about, I'm adjacently correct about. There are still things that surprise and delight. There are still plenty of things that I don't know or don't pick up on, and I'm talking about MSQ, not side content. So what that leads to is there's often very little for the past couple of years that utterly and completely surprises me about a patch story. But the reason for that is not bad writing, it's actually good writing. It's because they establish elements that lead into each other to pay off naturally. So while some of the time the reason I'm not surprised is because I can see where it's going based off of the clues being given, that's good writing that naturally it's leading where you think it's going to go, and still there are some surprises. You know? So I would say it's not so much that I'm happy that I called it, as much as I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I guess that's happy, right? I wanted to hear Steve Irwin and Mercy saying, "Nah, crikey, that looks like a beaut." That was not good, but I'm in love with T-Tools and I'm fighting to stave off Wikipedia levels of distraction. Well, I'm glad you have access to it. If you want to do me a solid, David, if you know anybody else who would love to use it, it doesn't give us any money or anything for you guys to use it. In fact, if anything, it probably costs us. But just making sure people know about it and it is a widely known tool for people to be able to use who are interested in it, that would bring me joy. Helping people learn stuff would bring me great joy. It has all the fishes. Yeah. It should have everything. It should have ancillary dialogue. It should have fishes. It should have every item. It may not be updated to 7.3. That is the one thing. We may need to update it. I can't read the description of all right, whenever I want. Yeah. You've been scary good at predicting things, though, almost like you have inside information. But it's not. It's literally it's not inside information. All it is just like play the patches and like read closely all of the information given and watch the cutscenes like at least like 2 to 3 times. Like, and anyone can do what I'm doing. Like, and again, I'm like between 60 and 90% right. Like, it's never been 100. There's always been something slightly off. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I thought it was Malachi's voice in the trailer, but it was it's Lith, the guy who wears red, the monk guy. I always forget his name. I have such a hard time remembering. But so like there are things I'm wrong about, to be very clear. Also want big spider enemies in 14 Australia. Yeah. That'll definitely. What's the best way to make sure no one farms the EX mounts? Make them all spiders. Like 10% of players are like, I am here for it, and then 90% of players, I'm like, I'm out. Such good writing. I love it when the story is good about carrying details forward. And again, there are still things that are surprising and delighting. Like it's not like everything is just by rote, but it is like the shape of what's to come should be pretty apparent usually if you're paying close attention. And if you don't want to pay close attention because you want to be surprised, that's completely valid. Like it's not like everyone needs to pay hyper close attention. If you go to Mara City, I'm going to demand flamethrowers and loads of gasoline. The spiders are cursed. Lythander, thank you, Samimi. For some reason, I cannot remember Lythander's name. I think it's because it's like my brain wants to go like lithium or like Lysander or something. Look, on behalf of the fact that they got rid of the holes in the Sage Nulith symbol because of people's tryptophobia, I think they would be a little wary of maybe. I mean, we have spider enemies. But not a lot, to be fair. Not a lot. Neve, good to see you. Glad to have it. I just got an ad for a charger that was Spanish, yet the narration was English and the product was blurred. I don't control YouTube's ads, sadly. And technically it's based either on what you guys watch. So I don't know what you've been up to, Nevik, but okay. But yeah, no, I'm very excited. I'm really a safe guess for 8.0 would be Meracidia and then having like a Corvos map, like the clouds of Ilsabard going away. The only thing, like narratively makes sense. I'm not going to go into too much detail. No spoilers for Dawn Trail onwards. But narratively, there's a lot that makes sense. Thematically, there's a lot of reasons that make sense. There's so many reasons it makes sense. The problem is it's conventional. And while I don't mind conventional, Yoshi P loves surprising the player base in some way. Now, to be fair, you could still do that and surprise us in a way that we would not have possibly expected. But yeah. So here's hoping 8.0 is Meracidia. And if it's not, I'm happy. Like, frankly, there's not really I don't care what they do as long as it's good. Like, and good for me by my standard. And so far they have not let me down. Spiders that look more like scorpions? Oh, there's a thought. Warrior of Light ain't gonna be safe when spiders crawl when they're sleeping. Yeah, no, if you're only sleeping on your while flying on your mount in Meracidia, that's the new rule. Okay, let's finish up the page. The Northern Empty. Across Abelathia's spine, the battered seacoast of the Far Reach, and beyond the Bloodbrine Sea, lies the Northern Empty. A vast body of water almost entirely void of islands, save for 2 major chains. The first, and northernmost, is a remote archipelago known as Eorzea, or First Land in the Rogadin tongue, homeland of the Sea Wolf tribe of Rogadin. It is from these islands that some of the first inhabitants of Limsa Lominsa are said to have hailed, arriving on Vilbrand following the failed raiding attempts in the southern Rotano Sea. On the second group of islands further to the west can be found Old Sharlayan, the very nation from which settlers came in the early 6th Astral Era to form a satellite city in the Dravanian hinterlands. I also want to point out, like, the Razat Han section that we had earlier in Thavnair. Like, all of the Thavnair section, all of this was written in 2016, and all of the Thavnair section was completely spot on and accurate in terms of how they did world building for Endwalker, with Razat Han and Thavner. Like, the degree to which they establish seeds early on, of like ideas and world building and plot, and then make sure they respect those and then build off them is phenomenal. I love it because you have, like, we had bits of the new world, but we didn't understand Tyrell. We didn't know about Tyrell. We had very little besides, you know, knowing about Mamuk and the Autark and, Kettenram or, the foods, or like, we had all these little bits, but then they got to make something beautiful and new and awesome from what little we knew that also still respect that. I want to go to another shard until we get rid of more clouds on our map. Nevik, I'm broadly with you, but like also if they do it, it's still going to be good, you know? So it's like, we're going to get there. Like, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That said, yeah, no, I'm with you. My preference is the same. We also had Razat Han stuff and Stormblood maps. Yep, you had the Uznairs. You had the Uznair maps. You had multiple pieces of clothing, that Thavnarian pieces of clothing. Thavnarian foods show up. Whole bunch of stuff. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, Uznair's been around for a while. The Southern Seas. The seas far to the south of Eorzea also teem with countless tiny islets. Excepting the occasional squall, proximity to Hydaelyn's equator blesses these islands with a warm, pleasant climate. It is from these islands that the Lalafell originated, using catamaran-like ships, unique to their civilization, to travel across the boundless waters and to the great continents. Interaction between Eorzea and the southern islands is remarkably abundant, with most trade going through Limsa Lominsa and its busy ports. It is also well documented that Arcanima, the school from which arcanists draw their craft, originated in these isles and was brought to Vilbrand by Lalafellian immigrants to the realm. Friendly reminder that Alo Alo is not the only island in the South Seas, so even though Alo Alo itself is abandoned, there are other islands from which people inhabit. At least based off of every piece of text we've got about the South Seas, because there is trade with them, the assumption, unless you're referring to the prior points in time in which there was trade, the assumption in the common day is that there are at least some kind of Lalafellian outposts in one of the other islands other than Alo Alo. It's the main one. It is, yeah. But even if you look at the world map, you'll notice that there's literally, you can see two large islands, like two greater islands. As someone who spends time doing G-pose after MSQ, Dawn Trail has made me happy, especially the final zone. Yeah. We won't go too much into that. Just know that, and I have no idea when it will come out, but I do have a video entirely about Dawn Trail that will come out eventually. It may be as late as 7.5. I'm making no promises about when, but I've been taking notes on it for a long, long time. Speaking of the New World. The New World. The final of Hydaelyn's three major landmasses lies far to the west of Eorzea, beyond the boundless ocean known as the Indigo Deep. Despite the dearth of ancient epics and historical tomes to support the land's existence, as recently as 80 years ago, it was debated whether or not the place was not more than mere literary exaggeration. That is, until a Seawolf adventurer, hailing from Limsa Lominsa named Kettenram the Blue, rediscovered the region upon sailing west for nigh 2 moons. Notwithstanding the sailors' repeated attempts to name the region Kettenland, the New World remains the term most commonly used today. Not only did Kettenram and his crew discover the landmass, but they also spent several moons exploring inland, eventually encountering the denizens of the sprawling nations of Mamalja. Kettenram was even granted audience with the nation's supreme leader, to whom he presented various gifts from his Eorzean home. These rare gifts impressed the leader so much that he presented him with a massive idol forged from pure silver, as well as an allowance to roam free upon the nation during their stay. Kettenram used this opportunity not only to map the land, but to gather myriad root vegetables and seeds to carry back to Limsa Lominsa. Many staples in modern-day Eorzean diet, such as ogre pumpkins, ruby tomatoes, Popotos, and alligator pears are all transplants from the New World. While distance prevents much modern-day interaction between the New World and Eorzea, recent years have seen an influx of mammal-jaw mercenaries making the trip from their homeland to make profit from the unrest in the East. Let's scroll down. So the question then, where does Lollyho greeting originate? The dwarves. So you have it in Condite P in 9. You have it with the dwarves in 4. It's in 5. Nevik says it's in 1 and 3. I don't remember it in 1 and 3. But yeah, it's been around at least since 4. Where is it in 1 and 3, Nevik? And specifically in 1, is it in the version of the remaster in 1? The reason I asked that is because they retroactively have added things like Legends of a Cid and stuff like that in the like HD remakes and stuff, or the like pixel remasters and stuff for FF1. So it's like a retroactive thing. They were changed in localization, IDK. Okay, cool. Thanks for pointing it out. Yeah, so at least the two biggest examples, I would say, off 4 and 9. And in 9, it was localized as Raliho, and that's because in Japanese, you have Ra. Like, the R and L sound are kind of like just one sound collectively. So if you're localizing that, if you don't have someone conveying to you which it should be, conveying Raliho as Raliho or Laliho would both, without someone saying, this is my intent, both would be completely reasonable ways to localize, to translate that. I wonder if any kind of re-releases of 9 have kept Raliho, though. As far as I know, there's not been any change to the Laliho. That said, 14's version is clearly Laliho. I unironically want the CGI map to G-pose in their CGI maps. It would send my PC into black hole, but... Well, so... If you're talking about the pre-rendered, like... If you're talking about the pre-rendered trailer maps, the problem with that is that, like... There's so many problems to explain about that. It's not a game. All of that's hand animated. So, like, you wouldn't be able to G-pose because nothing from the game would be applicable to it. Like, the rigs for the models would be different. You know... I mean, it wouldn't even just be a black hole for your PC. It's even if you have a modern PC, you would effectively still have... You'd be making a movie, is what you'd be doing. That is what the renderers are, is you'd be like using Maya. It wouldn't be like playing a game. Yeah. I sometimes wish the maps would match the ones in game. Tulial seems more vertical in the CGI. I mean, it's worth pointing out that you can go very high, and if like you actually start from the base of Tulial to two highest points, like the top of the temple or the top of the tower over by the I am forgetting their name, the Lance Guard. It is a difference of 20. I think it's like something that's like 18 on the Z, like going from 0 to 18. Yeah. Raliho makes sense, granted on a different side of the coin. It's Aerith in the OG portals, whilst Aerith in... Well, I mean, to be fair, it's been Aerith, though, in Final Fantasy VII since at least 2000. Because it was Aerith in literally every... I think the reason the OG ports don't change is because they're not changing anything. Like, they are literally just ports. It's just the PS1 version. And some of the things... the thing is, like... Eris was always the same case, like Raliho, where it's if someone didn't specify what it was. It's not like the dev team changed their mind as much as it was a mistranslation. Aerith was a king. Well, I mean, no, it was... Kingdom Hearts was the first Western place where Aerith was said, but Aerith was what it was from the get-go. There's even pre-release, there's even release material, not the, like, game, but like in the 90s, late 90s, there was even like release material that had been changed to Aerith. Yeah, it's Aerith it's Aerith in literally everything but OG7. Like literally, I mean, someone please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But as far as I know, the only case where it's Aerith is OG7. And so remember that particularly up until Final Fantasy 10. I mean, it got better with 9. 8 and 9, but 9, I mean 9 still has it. There was not they didn't work with the localization team as closely. Like, and for 1 through 6, I don't even think it was a team. I'm pretty sure it was mostly one guy. So there was a lot more of people making a best guess. So like, here, you know what? Fuck it. Let me, so if you have Aerith's name in Japanese, right? It's literally Arisu. But like, that's because there's no th sound. Well, there's no th sound at the front of something. So like, if you wanted to say like, if you want to say math, right? I don't know that this is technically how you do it, but like math in Japanese would be like masu. It's probably not. It's probably like let me look it up in Jisho. No, not Sugaku. Nah, no, I don't want actual. Well, okay, the answer is in Japan, they wouldn't say masu. They would say, you know, like you would say, you know, Sugaku. But the point being that there's no TH sound. So if you saw Erisu, you don't know, are they saying Eris? Are they like, not assuming Aerith is not a weird thing to do. Yeah, you spoony YouTube. Sorry if it caused attention. No, it's inevitable with me. It's inevitable. I meant more in the context of 14 lore when Lollyho started from, but it's just an Easter egg, then no biggie. I mean, it's not an Easter egg in so much that, like, Final Fantasy games all take there's one way I described the Final Fantasies that I kind of like. Imagine Final Fantasy. What makes up a Final Fantasy is 100 different things, and every Final Fantasy chooses to take, like, 70 of those things. And some of them choose different ones. So, like, sometimes you get, Ramu, sometimes you get Ixion, sometimes you get, but like they're taking they all have unique things, but they're all taking from the same pastiche of things. Things like Lollyho get brought in. Yeah, glad we didn't get Kururu. Yeah, we got Kryl instead. Yeah, it's like jazz music. Yeah, same problem. I meant watching the CG maps in a very yeah. You're good, Jojo. Also, again, I take things at super face value, so don't mind me. It's more likely that I'm over literalizing what you're saying. Yeah, wanting the CGI maps in a very unrealistic way. Yeah, I feel you on the desire. Let's say that. Okay, onto a new page. Hydaelyn and Zodiark. For thousands of years, Eorzea has experienced a repeated cycle of devastation. Umbral eras, and prosperity, astral eras. Recent revelations have shown that this may be a result of a deep-seated conflict between the will of light, Hydaelyn, and the will of darkness, Zodiark. The eras. Eorzea has been defined by its periods of growth and prosperity, wherein civilizations have risen and thrived until being brought down by terrible disasters, known as calamities, which, in turn, bring upon ages of darkness, known as umbral eras. The most recent calamity occurred a mere 5 years past, and constituted a night of destruction, which ushered in a period of chaos and uncertainty, known as the 7th Umbral Era. This calamity was a result of the fall of Hydaelyn's lesser moon, Dalamud, in the 1572nd year of the 6th Astral Era. Upon the satellite's arrival above the Cardinal Flats in central Eorzea, it split apart, revealing the elder primal Bahamut, who in a fit of that's not a word I know. I mean, I can guess based on context, but what does it mean? How do you pronounce that? Just begun and not fully formed. Oh.
Inchoate.
Inchoate. Okay. In a fit of inchoate anger, laid waste to anything and everything around him. Up until Dalamud's fall, Many 6th Astral Era scholars convinced themselves that the fact that there had already been 6 calamities, each representing one of the 6 elements, was proof there could not be a 7th, and that the 6th Astral Era would last indefinitely. However, subsequent study of Garlean Emperor Legatus Nail Van Darnus' meteor project would eventually lead these scholars to the conclusion that the attack by Bahamut was indeed a calamity, though one not represented by any one element, but rather consisting of all the elements charged astrally. Following much deliberation between the scholars and the ruling parties of each of the 4 Eorzean city-states, the consensus was finally made to deem the years following Bahamut's advent the 7th Umbral Era. Ascians. Throughout Eorzea's history, whether it be in folklore or myth, there has been mention of dark, shadowless figures known as Ascians, who, with their twisted words, would incite strife between peoples, most recently teaching the beast tribes of Eorzea how to summon Primals, and essentially ignite a war spanning multiple continents. According to recent research by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, there is proof that the calamities once believed to be natural occurrences were actually triggered by the crooked schemings of the Ascians in an attempt to bring about a phenomenon known as the rejoining, a form of dimensional compression desired by their deity, Zodiark. Dimensional compression. But what is dimensional compression? The students of Baldessian and Scions of the Seventh Dawn have both allocated resources into learning more about the phenomenon. Their findings are as follows. Deep within the ethereal sea, light and darkness wage a never-ending war against each other. Equal in strength, their battles end in standstills, maintaining balance in the world. However, there was a period when the strength of darkness grew, disrupting this balance. From within the Mother Crystal, the will of light, Hydaelyn, passed judgment that darkness should be physically excised from the planet and cast the will of darkness, Zodiark, into space. Where it became the moon. However, in doing so, Hydaelyn tore the very dimensional fabric, creating a rift which spawned forth 13 mirror images, which have since evolved separately from the original. This hypothesis continues by stating that of the 14 parallel dimensions, the original upon which Eorzea exists, the original of these upon which Eorzea exists. This hypothesis continues by stating that of the 14 7 have already faded into oblivion at the hands of the Ascian. 7 have already faded into oblivion at the hands of the Ascians, who, from the safety of Eorzea, work to topple the walls between dimensions, causing them to collapse in on themselves. Their purpose? To regather the aether distributed amongst the 13 mirrored planes and concentrate it back to the original, where it can be used to wake the exiled Zodiark and restore him to his rightful place back within Hydaelyn. This process, compressing 14 dimensions back into one, is what the Ascians refer to as the Ardor, and it most certainly spells destruction of life on Hydaelyn as we know it. Zero, good to go, have you. Andreas, good to go, have you. Just want to come and say I love your videos. Thank you. Always some small details that's new to me. That's great. If we do any kind of thing that either increases your enjoyment of the game or makes you learn something new, then we are succeeding. Sincerely feel that from the bottom of my heart. The one consistency I have found that all numbers non-sequel FF games has is an airship. You don't necessarily fly in it though. Yes, yeah. Every single Final Fantasy game has an airship. Not every game has a Cid or as a Chocobo. Those don't come in until 2. Crystals. A crystals or a crystal analog is in every Final Fantasy. What shape they take can vary. So for instance, 10, my favorite single player Final Fantasy, uses spheres, but spheres are effectively crystals. They are analogs for what crystals do. right? All Final Fantasies have a version of crystals. The Bahamut coming out of the moon be like dad waking up early from his nap because someone did something stupid. That's a way to put it. Certainly is a way to put it. I do want to point something out here, though. Like, for instance, them referring to the fact that Zodiac was sealed within the moon. Stuff that was that we were aware of as early as Heavensward. Technically, I think it might have even been earlier than that. But it's here, so at least 2016. We didn't go to the moon until 2021, right? What year did Endwalker come out? Endwalker was December 2021, right? I'm not crazy. 15 is very extra having 2 Sids. Yeah. To be fair, I do like their interpretation of having the 2 Sids, of it, like, being generational in that sense, Sid and Sydney. Sid and Sydney is kind of a version of Sid and Midodel, right? All Final Fantasies have a wife. Yep, December 2021, yeah. So it was a solid 5 years, right? Before, Jesus Christ, Endwalker came out 4 years ago. That's crazy. But it was a solid 5 years before that anything paid off of that. By the same token, like, they sow a lot of seeds. I mean, heck, Eureka Orthos didn't get paid off. It was established in A Realm Reborn and didn't get paid off until patch content of Endwalker, right? Tenja, good to have you. Levy, good to have you. Okay, back to pages. Scroll down. Friendly reminder, if you have any questions about what we're reading or any lore-based questions, feel free to ask them. I will get to them after each page. The Warriors of Light. In the moons before the Calamity struck, and ushered in the 7th Umbral Era, Eorzea saw the rise of unlikely heroes, who took up their blades to stave off impending doom. However, despite their countless deeds, the names and faces of these brave men and women have been mysteriously erased from the minds of Eorzeans. All that remains being a searing white brilliance that blinds us from memories that should exist. These shades have since been dubbed the Warriors of Light, and while their identities may never be fully known by most, these deeds will live on in legend for all eternity. The Echo. So, who were these Warriors of Light who led Eorzea back from the precipice of destruction? Study of ancient documents from musty tomes to wall carvings show us that they are not unique to the 6th Astral Era, and that similar heroes have appeared before every calamity to ensure mankind endures. For example, before the Great Flood which marked the end of the 5th Astral Era, legend tells us of 12 archons who descended on Eorzea to warn its denizens of the rising waters. There are also tales from the Near East which followed the exploits of great warriors known as the Zodiac Braves, warriors whose appearance also happens to coincide with past calamity. What then ties these legendary figures with the Warriors of Light who emerged but 5 summers past? One answer might be the light. Actually, I'm going to make a note of that because page. Okay. That further reinforces my theory that the Zodiac Braves, I mean, we know that they had to have been before the 5th Astral Era, but possibly the 4th would make a lot of sense. What then ties these legendary figures with the Warriors of Light who emerged but 5 summers past? One answer might be the Mother Crystal and the power she is hypothesized as providing to those of her choosing. Eorzean myth is full of tales and heroes who have been granted seemingly otherworldly powers. While much of this can be attributed to embellishment by bards looking to add spice to their honeyed tales of sword and sorcery, might it be that these tales also speak some truth, as the powers which they describe are often similar to the ones documented by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn as being experienced by those few who have had contact with Hydaelyn. Let me take that from the top. Might it be that these tales also speak some truth, as the powers which they describe are often similar to ones documented by the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, as being experienced by those few who had contact with Hydaelyn? This power, known as the Echo, comes in many forms, several of which are listed below. The power to transcend words. For those blessed with the power to transcend words, language no longer poses a barrier in intercultural communications. Voiced utterances fade and are replaced by an internal understanding of another's intentions. Conversely, words spoken by one with this power are immediately understood by all, without the need of linguistic interpretation. The power to transcend time. Those granted with the form of the Echo can mentally travel back in time to witness occurrences experienced by another. It was originally thought that proximity with the memory holder was necessary for transcession. However, it has recently been discovered that residual mnemonic aether lingering in a location can also trigger these third-person flashbacks. The power to transcend worlds. Though rare, there have also been cases reported of individuals who, through the manifestation of Hydaelyn's very light, can walk the ethereal plane and communicate directly with the planet herself. The Blessing of Light. If recollection of self-proclaimed heroes are to be believed, Hydaelyn will often attempt to make contact with those who possess the Echo, sometimes in the form of a voice, other times in the form of a vision, and still other times in the form of enhanced senses or protective barriers to shield against powerful magics. These boons have been called Blessings of Light, yet despite their frequency, little is known about them. However, it is assumed that many of the miracles, which appear in myth and legend, are actually instances of Hydaelyn bestowing her blessing upon an individual. Okay, let's get this is why I'm interested in Mirror City with all the lore and seeds they have already told us there. Yeah, Dom, good to see, glad to have you. No, there's so many seeds from Mirror City. There's so many seeds. Because remember, Mirror City had a bunch of lore about it as early as A Realm Reborn with Bahamut. But then you have the Warring Triad and Heaven's Word. There has not been an expansion where they have not mentioned and established lore about Mericidia. The lightest of them would be, I believe, Stormblood. Stormblood or Shadowbringers has relatively little, but I believe it's Stormblood technically only references it a couple times for the most part. But every expansion has further added more and more to Mirror City. So we simultaneously know very little and a hell of a lot. Yeah. We still got Shards Adventure 2. Yep. This entire reading is just the future lore shorts, ain't it? Zero, I have a literal, I won't pull it up. I have what's called Trello. I have literally hundreds of lore shorts. If I hadn't been sick for the past couple of years, I would have been making a lot more, and I plan to be making a lot more. It's just hard to do all my life things, plus write scripts, plus gather footage. But there should be a lot more coming out. I know I definitely want to do one on Living Way, partially because of EE1, partially also because, or sorry, Naming Way, not Living Way, Naming Way because of EE1, and then also Cosmic Exploration. Makes me recall the Zodiac Braves also have a parallel on the 13th with the Aurosite and such, even if we fight on the Void Ark. I mean, broadly speaking, there's direct comparisons made to the would have been Warriors of Light of the 13th and the ways in which they failed, specifically people like Unikal High, Historical Golbez, Zero, oh, why am I, not Rubicante, it'll come to me. One of you guys will get it. You know what I'm talking about. The other character who uses a big sword. It's something Dante. It'll come to me. Interesting enough, we have Void Ark, Cuchulainn, but also Cuchulainn and Bosnia. Yeah. Well, because to be fair, remember that the Cuchulainn and Bosnia is called Fourth Make Cuchulainn. It's technically not called Cuchulainn. Cuchulainn, there's the Void Sent Cuchulainn, and also, if I'm not mistaken, There's a note in EE3 about the the fact that they're both called the same thing. If I'm not mistaken, I think the idea being that the moniker for the Void Scent might have came from, Cuchulainn. So this is referring to the fourth make Cuchulainn. The former zealot of the 4th Legion was reborn by power of Orsite in the likeness of Cuchulainn, the impure of Evilesian legend. While he shares his name with renowned Voidsent, this is believed to be no more than a coincidence. So, fun fact, they even cover that. This is why I love the Encyclopedia Eorzea. They like 90 to 95% of the time will even have like the small notes for like the super lore nerds like us. I hope Oda's working on EE4. Okay. Ooh, but what order do I go? Do I go? Let's go the order that they went for in Mists of the Realm. The 12. Eorzea, a land loved by gods and forged by heroes. The gods of which this epithet speaks are the 12, the pillars upon which religious faith in Eorzea firmly rests. 12 worship. Belief in the 12, a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each represented by one of the 6 elements upon which all creation is founded, has served as a cornerstone for civilization in Eorzea for millennia. Though theologians remain unsure of the exact origins of 12 worship in Eorzea, studies of relics from the Allegan civilization tell us that even 5,000 years ago, at the peak of the 3rd astral era, the 6 and 6 deities were already ingrained in society, as they are today. Not only is the year divided into 12, and 12-year cycle used in modern astrology, city-states still choose a patron deity to serve as a guardian over their lands, with that deity becoming a focal point of cultural development, such as the case with Nald Dal and the economically inclined Uldans. Sometimes, people from certain races or professions will choose to focus their worship on a single deity. Many Mikote of the Seekers of the Sun clan will follow the teachings of Azima, and Many Mikotes of the Seeker of the Sun clan will follow the teachings of Azima the Warden, and Goddess of the Sun. Sailors will often pray to Limlane, Watchers of the Sea, and Goddess of Navigation to see their ships safely to port. And artisans will pray to Byragot to guide their hands. Byragot, the Builder. Byragot is the purveyor of architecture and industry, and god of the arts. He commands the elements of lightning and is associated with the 7th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Byragot is the elder brother of Hydaelyn and pupil to Thaliak. He is often depicted as an ardent smith with a 2-headed hammer. His symbol is the hand. Let me scroll down real quick. Rhalgr, the Destroyer. Rhalgr, Breaker of Worlds, is the god of destruction and guardian deity of the now fallen nation of Alamigo. He commands the element of lightning and is associated with the 8th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Rhalgr is the father of both Byragot and Hydaelyn, and serves as attendant to Nymea. He is often depicted as a magi, carrying a staff of bronze. His symbol is the streaking meteor. Azima, the Warden. Azima is the keeper of the sun and goddess of inquiry. She commands the element of fire and is associated with the 9th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Azima is the daughter of Althic and the elder sister of Minfina. She is most often depicted as a noble lady holding a golden fan. Her symbol is the radiant sun. Nald Dal, the Traders. Nald Dal, overseer of the underworld and god of commerce, is the guardian deity of Ul'dah. He commands the elements of fire and is associated with the 10th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Nald Thal is the single manifestation of the deific twin, Nald and Thal. He is most often depicted as a discerning merchant holding a balance. His symbol is the cowrie, an ancient shell currency. Nafka, the matron. Nafka, tender of soils and harvests, and goddess of abundance, is the guardian deity of Gridania. She commands the element of earth and is associated with the 11th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Nafka is the daughter of Azima and the younger sister of Limlane. She is most often depicted as a jubilant farmer holding a scythe of steel. Her symbol is the spring leaf. Althic, the keeper. Althic is the surveyor of change and space. Althic is the surveyor of change and space and god of time. He commands the element of earth and is associated with the 12th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Althic is the father of Azima and Menfina, an elder brother to Nymea. He is most often depicted as an austere emperor wielding a mithril great axe. His symbol is the hourglass. I'm going to pause there for a second, scroll back up to do the others. Friendly reminder that these are the versions of their mythological form. So this is the version of them and how they're worshipped in myth currently. Halone, the Fury. Halone, mover of glaciers and goddess of war, is the guardian deity of Ishgard. She commands the element of ice and is associated with the first moon of the Eorzean calendar. Halone is the daughter of Ralgar and a bitter rival of Nafka. She is most often depicted as a relentless warrior armed with a bronze great shield. Her symbol is the 3 spears. Menfina, the lover. Menfina is keeper of twin moons. Menfina is keeper of the twin moons and the goddess of love. She commands the element of ice and is associated with the 2nd moon of the Eorzean calendar. Menfina is the sister of Azima and the divine lover of Oshan. She is most often depicted as a maid carrying a round skillet. Her symbol is the full moon. Thaliak, the scholar. Thaliak, ruler of rivers and wisdom, and god of knowledge, is the guardian deity of Sharlayan. He commands the element of water and is associated with the 3rd moon of the Eorzean calendar. Thaliak is the father of Limlane and the teacher of Byragot. He is most often depicted as a reserved scholar, holding an ashen staff. His symbol is the scroll. Nymea is the watcher of celestial bodies and goddess of fate. Nymea, the spinner. Nymea is the watcher of celestial bodies and goddess of fate. She commands the element of water and is associated with the 4th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Nymea is the younger sister of Althic and master of Ralgar. She is most often depicted as a weaver donning a white silken veil. Her symbol is the spinning wheel. Limlane, the navigator. Limlane, watcher of the seas and goddess of navigation, is the guardian deity of Limsa. She commands the element of wind and is associated with the 5th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Limlane is the daughter of Thaliak and the elder sister of Nafka. She is most often depicted as a strong fisherwoman wielding a long-bladed harpoon. Her symbol is the wave. Oshan, the wanderer. Oshan is ruler of the mountains and god of wanderers and vagrants. He commands the element of wind and is associated with the 6th moon of the Eorzean calendar. Oshan is the brother of Nald Thal and close companion of Halone. He is most often depicted as a carefree ranger wielding a bow of yew. His symbol is the walking stick. Oh. Okay. We are almost exactly 2 hours in, and I've made it through 20 pages. So, obviously some tangents, but broadly speaking, on that cadence. So, 300, so that's 10, 20 times 10, that's so 15. So it should be about 30 hours to record all of Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1. So 30 hours per book. If I do, streams are going to be between 2 and 6 hours. Give me a second, I'm going to calculate this out. I want to plan out how we're going to be doing this. Maybe we'll do this like once a week on Tuesdays and work slowly over time. Or maybe I'll add extra days. It depends. So that is hours per times 3. So 90 hours. Let's say on average 4 hours of recording. That's 22 sessions. And if we do one a week, that gives us about a couple months. Okay. I don't have a firm plan if I'm going to be doing this multiple times a week or not. The thing is, I want to make more shorts and videos, and so this would eat into that. But I definitely am going to do this at least once a week. If we don't go to Meridian next, I might crash out. Oh, it looks like chat didn't update, so I'm getting all your chats now. Yeah, possibly. If we don't look, I think it's highly likely. I think that we'll see the cloud cover of Ilsabard go away, and we'll go to Meridian and maybe have Corvos as a map. I would say that that's like, well, I'd say it's highly likely in that it's a 50-50. But it's like 50% chance that, 50% chance everything else. So, I think it's a good chance. I wouldn't put all my money on it. Hell, I put all my money on... I will say, I made a video of why I thought Mirror City would be 7.0. And everything I said in that video, effectively, you can just transplant to why it should be 8.0. Like, every reason I gave effectively makes it make sense for 8.0. And all the reasons added from Dawntrail add to on top of that. If I remember rightly, Infinite claimed I should just change the thumbnail that says 8.0. Just have it say 8.0. I have such faith in you towards the weekend. Yeah, sounds good, Benny. Durante. Oh my god, that was a while ago. Durante, thank you guys. Yes. Durante was what I was thinking about. Yeah, but Sylvia is another one palm. I gotta make sure to refresh chat. For some reason it wasn't updating. Zodia Braves are separate from Evilies. I wish the lore books had more about the raids. It feels like they don't have much. Do you mean the Alliance raids? The Evilisian Alliance raids? To be fair, in part, that's because some of that knowledge wanted to be... the reason for the raids is primarily because Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 2 didn't come out until 4.4. So it didn't even have the final Alliance raid to have, if I'm not mistaken. I've been going through EEs, writing up all the history and add lore related to Bosnia, and it's been very fun. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with Bosnia, and it's great because Bosnia lore has technically been around since 1.0. Like, Bosnia lore is old. A lot of good Bosnia stuff. I want to do a Bosnia video someday too, because Bosnia there's so much story and stuff going on in Bosnia that you miss because like it's being done in the dialogue for the CEs. Or the Fates. Yo, Slim Lane. I love that the sword she yeets at you is a great sword from the Maelstrom. Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to, Dom, you'll have to let me know if you find any interesting tidbits on Bosnia lore there. I'm gonna reopen chat because it's just straight not updating now. Chat. Yeah, okay, there we go. There's only a little bit about Alexander and Eureka. Yeah, so Eureka in part it's because I don't think Hydaelyn would have been out yet. Let me double check that. Yes, Hydaelyn would have come out after, so that's part of why it's not in EE2 at all, really. That is, you do get a little bit more in EE3, I think in the dungeon section, there's a bit about it, but it's not a lot, yeah. Fallen in Bosnia, yeah. Also in the field notes, like I haven't I learned so much about Nagsha, and that one Nagsha rep is helping Scion's B team after Endwalker. Yeah, yes. So like a lot of our Nagsha lore, a lot of our greater non-Stormblood Oathar lore, a lot of that comes from Bozja stuff. I want this to be a celebration moment, so don't take this as the wrong way. But like it frustrates me as a lore nerd, Bozja's awesome. But like the way it presents so much of its fundamental character story through the like field notes and other stuff at the cost of the narrative is frustrating. So on the one side, I love field notes. I wish we had field notes to that depth and degree more often. Like even Occult Crescent isn't anywhere to the same degree as Bozja, at least not so far. But the trade-off there is that like really important information is in the field notes for Bozja, and it's a bit of a problem. But yeah, from a lore perspective, there's a lot of juicy stuff. And almost all of our Nagsha lore comes from EE2. Well, I mean, from what's collated in EE2 or the Bozja loner notes. There's a reference to it in Endwalker. For those who don't know, Nagsha is like north east of Yangsha, and it's kind of, to oversimplify, Final Fantasy XIV Vietnam. Understand that and agree with that. There's so much in the field notes that I adore. Yeah. No, the field notes from a lore standpoint and from like just a finding out about the world standpoint, chef's kiss, S tier. How they kind of negatively impact the storytelling, D or F tier. Which, hey. Cool. Shall we continue on then? Yeah, it seems like, look, a lot of you guys seem super interested in this with how many people showed up already. So I'll definitely be doing this at least once a week. And that also give us something fun to do until we get to, content drought and hit 8.0. Because if I'm at current cadence, 22 weeks would be, so it is 4, 8, 12, 6. Yeah, I mean, it's only like a patch cycle and a half. Okay, cool. Cool. Creation. Creation myth in Eorzea has taken on countless forms over the ages. One prominent astrologian and theologian, Lufon of Sharlayan, has spent his academic career studying the overlap in these renditions and has compiled what he claims is a definitive tale. So remember, this is he collated all the different myths of Eorzea. So this isn't like, remember, it's important because it's in universe text. If something is like a myth or a story, there might be bits of truth in it, but it doesn't mean that you need to like, don't look at EE1 or through 3 and treat them as end-all be-all absolute information given to us from the writer telling us that this is like case blah 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 blah. They are in universe text of people's understanding of a thing, both at a specific point in time and often in a recounting of the understandings of the people in the world. Now, as we get closer to EE3, it becomes a little bit more like the more we go along with EE1 is a lot more like, I don't know, man, the world's weird and we got some myth stuff. Let's try to make sense of it. By EE3, it's a little bit more like the Scions know some shit, but worth remembering. In the beginning, there was neither light nor darkness, only the whirl. And it was not until Althek emerged from thence in his nakedness did time take its first step forward. With him, the Keeper also carried weight, and with weight were the realms of land and firmament defined. Yet Althek would not be alone over long, for soon from the world did another step forth. Her name was Nymea, and she was but a mewling babe who could do naught but weep. And soon, her tears had created a vast lake. Althek, seeking companionship in the empty realm of his creation, took the young goddess under his wing, cared for her, as one would a daughter. As Nymea grew, however, so too did their love for one another, until it could no longer be contained, culminating in a divine coupling, which resulted in the birth of 2 holy daughters, Azima, the sun, and Minfina, the moon. And with their advent was day and night conceived. I will tell you, you may be like, ugh, but also that is not a lot of creation myths. That is that's fairly common. Oh, that's fairly common. Strangely common. I don't know what early humans were up to, but oh boy. So did the countless cycles of light and darkness pass before from the world. So did countless cycles of light and darkness pass before the world once again did another step forth. Thaliak, bearer of wisdom and knowledge, looked upon the silent and unchanging lake left by Nymea's tears, and coaxed from its river to carry that water to the far corners of the realm. Azima, drawn to Thaliak's sagacity, professed her love to the new deity and begot him 2 daughters, the first being Limlane, who took the water created by her grandmother and expanded it into the world's seas. The second daughter was lonely Nafka, who, wanting for companionship, created her own playmates, and thus brought life into the world. It was not until life had spread throughout the land and newly created seas that a new god appeared, though whence the others did not know, for the world lay dormant. His name was Eorzean, and where he wandered did towering mountains rise from level plains. With the formation of these spires did cold wind flow from on high, down to the warm seas, and back up again, carrying life that was once reserved for land and water into the skies. Those winds did bring love into the heart of Limlane, yet though she longed to be with Eorzean, his wanderlust prevented the two from ever being joined over long. And lo, did they never beget children of their own. This was a time of great creation, but also of great chaos. Eorzean's mountains rose and fell at his whim. Thaliak's rivers flowed hither and thither, and Limlane's seas ever expanded, swallowing entire swaths of land before the gods even knew they were gone. To bring order to this chaos, Nymea pried forth a mighty comet from the heavens and gave it life, directing it down to the world that it may destroy the excess her sons and daughters had wrought. Directing it down towards the world that it may destroy the excess her sons and daughters had wrought, while bringing harmony once again to the realm. And for many days and nights was the world calm, the gods content in the order which now reigned supreme. That is, until the world woke from its slumber and beckoned forth 2 final deities, Byragot and his younger sister Hydaelyn. It was feared that the untamed and ambitious siblings might once again usher chaos onto the world. So to see that they were properly disciplined, Nymea quickly made them wards of Rhalgr, the Destroyer. A builder by nature, Byragot resented his new stepfather, who could teach him only of destruction, choosing instead to spend most of his time in the tutelage of Thaliak. The scholar bestowed upon his eager student the knowledge he would use to forge the tools and techniques of creation. Though more open to her new father's teaching, Hydaelyn too grew restless, longing to test her strength. An opportunity arose when Eorzean invited the young goddess on one of his journeys. It was during these travels that Hydaelyn's ambition slowly transformed into a lust for battle. While on the road, she would challenge every creature she met, honing her skills and methodically devising new techniques for killing. When Nafka, mother of the life, learned of Hydaelyn's wanton destruction of her creations, she was angered beyond words and swore revenge. But the Fury ignored the matron's challenges, widening the rift between the two. Eorzean, feeling responsible for this rift, devised a plan to calm Nafka. From within the mountains of his creation, Eorzean summoned forth a magma, which spewed forth onto the land. Upon cooling, the magma took the form of the 12th and final god, the dual-aspected Nald Dal. With Nald Dal, Eorzean Eorzea had provided a god to oversee the souls of those who met their deaths and provide them with the peace in the afterlife. Satisfied that her creations would no longer wander the void aimlessly, Nafka agreed to a truce with Hydaelyn. And with the adventure of the 12th and final And with the advent of the 12th and final god was the pantheon complete. But before they could call an end to their toil, they first required a realm in which they could reside and watch over their myriad creation. They could reside and watch over their myriad creations. To this end, they created the 7 heavens, and to there did they finally retreat, bequeathing rule of Eorzea to mankind. Man, sometimes it's hard to read it because there is capitalized, so it like seems like it's the sentence ended. Very cozy, good. The tale is not screen reader friendly. Can't wait to learn about the actual creation of Aetheris. Hope we get that in the future expansion. I mean, so we know it depends on what you mean by actual creation of Aetheris. Because if you mean the actual creation of Aetheris, the way that stars form, and you can read this, I believe it's both in the short stories as well as in some of either the side quests or side dialogue in Elpis. Effectively, Aether accrues in the Sea of Stars. And it kind of like hydrogen, right, with planets, and it accumulates, or well, less so with planets, but you have Aether accumulate, and then it kind of creates a little bit of a core, and that core grows and grows and grows, and naturally creates its own ethereal sea at its core. With the more Aether it has, the more of a solid structure on the outside it creates, because the Aether is condensed enough that there can be a outer core of condensed Aether that creates corporeal Aether rather than incorporeal Aether. So we know that's how stars form, and I mean stars in the 14 sense, not in real world sense. But that is, we do know that. I really hope we get more of Ultima, her on the other shards, and her origin and Auracite stuff. You know, it's funny. I know a lot of people feel that way, and please feel that way and be excited for it. So don't take what I'm about to say as any kind of dissuasion towards it. I find the real strong interest in Ultima kind of weird. Like, I get it because she's an interdimensional foe, but like, the interdimensional rift, like, is the interdimensional rift. It's an infinite possibility corridor. Like, I doubt she's actually from another reflection. I suspect this is a very similar to how we are experiencing things, how we experience things like Nier, how we experience things like current not Rhapsodies of Vana'diel, Echoes of Vana'diel? Is that what it's called? So, like, it's not that I would say no to Ultima, and like, but it's like, they've kind of done everything they can to like set the heart of Sabik aside. The Auracite she makes while having unique properties based off of her magics and Aether is effectively just Auracite. Like the Duma and stuff are just Auracite. They're just crystal with specific power within them, or energy within them that are corruptive. The other thing is that they would have to make Ivalice effectively mandatory content, which, hey, they did that with Crystal Tower, right? But there's not a long legacy of doing that. And I guess it would be weird for it would be very strange to me if we do go back to the Well of Ultima. I'm perfectly happy to be wrong. I'm like both circumspect and not that enthusiastic, but I'm perfectly happy not only to be wrong, but also to be like, if they do a good story, I don't it doesn't really matter what they do. But yeah, my gut would say that we are done with Ultima. The only exemption to be that is if we see something with because the thing is, Ivalice in 14 is an interpretation of Ivalice. It's not 12s. It's not tactics. It's just they took 12 tactics and all that, combined it, and then created an interpretation. So that side of it, if we take that side of it, it's like, okay, well that's that. If we take Ultima as a threat that we know is for an interdimensional entity, and if we specifically, you can find out, there's more text about this either on the Prima Vista or obviously from the story, and I believe E2 has a comment on it. E3 that has, E2 or E3, one of them has a comment on it. Zadnor, Oracle Monster. Okay. Ultima the High Seraph. So named for her ability to wield the ultimate form of destructive magics, the High Seraph was once nothing more than an embodiment of pure ruination. Yet over time, the terror in which people held her shifted to reverence by a process not unlike the prayer-fueled creation of a primal. This worship quickened within Ultima a sense of self-awareness. So it's like she either is from our dimension, in which case she's slain, and really the information left to learn about her is relatively null, or she's not, in which case, I mean, there's something to explore for sure. And with where we're at in the narrative and the interdimensional rift being what it is and our access to it on the table. Again, do not take that speculation and postulation as any kind of dismissal for not only your excitement for, but desire for it. The TT card. Yeah, let's pull up the TT card. The TT card's another piece of dialogue. Ultima triple triad card. No, yeah, okay. That description in Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 3 is literally just the triple triad card. So. Yeah, Devik, you're just right. Yeah. Yeah. Literally, yeah. I wonder if Ultima is an alien. I mean, it's possible. The descriptions of her don't seem to imply as much, but it's super possible. The Sea of Stars is a huge expanse, right? Why am I getting WoW World Soul Pantheon vibes? For what? I guess more of who's the actual divine being, maybe? Sorry, second person. No, Jenny! No, please, please. Postulate your thoughts. Please put them forth. If you say something and I misunderstand or you misspeak, we will get to the heart of what you're saying. We'll figure it out. So don't worry about how your word will get there. Who the actual divine being is. Who is the actual divine being? When you say divine being, I mean, I'm assuming you're not referring to the 12, because if you are, I mean, go do the Alliance raid from Endwalker, Myths of the Realm. You'll get some answers there. If you mean divine being beyond that, I would point that these divine beings described here. These are myths, so we actually know the facts behind where these myths come from in the game. I'm trying not to speak too much about it in case people want to go play it for themselves. Myths of the Realm. If you mean, help me understand what you're specifically referring to when you mean the divine being, and then we can go from there for sure. I mean, wasn't she also sundered and would be on the other reflections since she was on Aetheris during ancient times? That presumes she was on Aetheris. We know she existed. We know the Heart of Sabik was created and existed, but we don't know where she was from. Like, remember, the Necropolis exists in a parallel dimension, like, outside of, like, the source, for instance. We don't know that there's... I mean, to your point, is it possible? Sure. But there's every reason to assume that she... Like, imagine if someone was out in the Sea of Stars. Remember, when the world gets sundered, it's only Aetheris that gets sundered. Like, the Dragon Star doesn't get sundered, right? So what happens if Ultima's like, oh shit, I know this is going on, I'm out, you know? Or has the capability to do that. I'm not saying we know that that's the case. I would just point that out. You would think that we would see some evidence in other reflections. Now, to your point, 13th, 1st, and 9th, all kind of fucky-wucky situations. So maybe it was an entity that was sundered, and then the one on the source was able to gather sentience, and it's only the source shard. Like, that's an interesting thought, for sure. But we don't know she was sundered. People think she might be connected to the heart of... Well, we know specific points are made to connect her to the Heart of Sabik and the ultimate magic. Like, specific points are made on that point with the Heart of Sabik. So, at least the game wants us to, if not think that from Stormblood onwards, once it heavily implies it. At the very least, it is related to. I believe there's a comment about the ethereological resonance of it being a match in an ammonia. I'd have to figure that out. I don't want to quote something without a primary text. She seems to sort of primarily X-Death-like in form. I mean, part of that's, I think, just Final Fantasy always having villains set on existential destruction. Something just triggered that thought, but looking back, I could not pinpoint exactly what it was triggered. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'll try to look. I'll try to make some more notes about all the specific comments on Ultima and the Heart of Sabik, because I know I've read all of that a bunch of times, but if I can't, yeah, primal-like. Yeah, definitely primal-like. So look, it is Ultima instead of the one that creates the Heart of Sabik, a byproduct of someone in possession of it that is then an entity that is then sundered. Like, yeah, these are interesting interpretations. Again, the problem is that they so strictly tied it to the Evil East Alliance raids, and making those mandatory gets weird. It's not impossible. As far as I'm concerned, I kind of wish they would make all the raids and Alliance raids mandatory. They're not that hard. They don't take that long, and there's a lot of important shit. Like, to be frank, if you haven't done Omega and Alexander, Shadowbringers makes no sense. Now, you can follow along, and if you don't care, that's fine. But, like, mechanically, narratively, those things have to have happened for that to make sense. Other than the fact that you could argue that as long as they happened in the 8th Umber Calamity timeline, technically, even if they didn't happen in your time, they learned the information. But, yeah, it gets weird. But, yeah. Look, friendly reminder to those of you who started later. Originally, you did not have to do the Crystal Tower before doing Shadowbringers. You did not have to have met a certain Mikote at all. That was added in 5.3 that they made that mandatory. Unleash the ultimates. Yeah, divine being, I mean, who, like, is the actual gods of 14, since we get our answer from Myth of the Realm? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good, Jenny. Jenny, if you want my answer within the confines of our universe, I don't think there is a creator deity. I think the implication by what we have learned, not only from the ancients, from Hydaelyn in specific, from the Ea and Ultima Thule, from every descriptor, is that, like, actually the universe is mechanistically existent in the same way that our real world one is. Now, okay, technically people believe in a god here, so that doesn't kind of maybe work as a perfect analogy. My point being, I don't think there is a creator god of 14. And if there is a creator god, the answer is it's Yoshibi. I think that the implication we are meant to be given as of the more we learn about the world, I think, is that it fundamentally there are no gods. There's just people, and powerful people all the way down. That is what I feel strongly is currently our understanding and have hardcore implication. No one made the universe. There are no unmoved movers. Yeah, I can sense that. Yeah. So, like, that there is no evidence as of now within the confines of the 14 universe, that's not to mention the interdimensional rift, because that becomes a more complicated question, that there is any creator deity. The only times we have known about any kind of creator deity, it turns out they're not actually that. And there's just not really any evidence to suggest it. And there are extremely powerful and ancient beings who have sought out answers to those questions, only to find out effectively entropy is going to kill us all. There's also the repeat of the Company of Heroes quest in it. Sorry, Nevik, what was that specifically? Yeah, the real god is Hildebrand. He just accidentally forgot. Yeah, well, yeah. You got, turns out the real creation myth is just Godbert crafted it all with his goldsmithing hammer. Okay, let's read another page while I wait for some of your guys' comments. Hells and heavens. Every god and goddess of the 12 is associated with one of the 6 controlling elements. When the deities deemed their work on Eorzea complete, they proceeded to create the firmament. the result being 6 astrally aligned heavens aspected to each of the 6 elements, and a final 7th heaven to rule them all. However, a residual product of these heavens were 6 similarly aspected hells, ruled by an all-encompassing, umbrally aligned 7th hell. The 6 lower heavens are represented in the sky by 6 constellations, star formations which astrologians also perceive as gates, that, when opened, can allow a person to become attuned with the heavens and manipulate their aether. These constellations revolve around the pole star, which is believed to be the gate to the 7th and final heaven. While some sects of the 12 worship have different views on the afterlife, most believe that the righteous are promised a place in the heavens, while sinners are doomed to an eternity of punishing trials in the hells. A belief made popular by a famous theologian and playwright of the 6th astral era states that upon an evil man's death, he will fall to a hell that corresponds to the sins he committed in his lifetime. Once suffering an eternity in payment for these sins, he must journey through the remaining 5 upper hells and witness the sins of his brothers before finally arriving at the gate of the 7th hell, where his heart will be weighed. If it is heavy with sorrow and repentance for what he has done, he will be sent to the heavens. But if it remains light, he will be admitted to the 7th hell, where he will suffer forevermore. The Hell and Heaven of Fire. In the Heaven of Fire sprawls an endless city built by Nald Thal from golden bricks fired in the heat of Azima's sun. Here resides the just and the fair, the honest and the philanthropic. The Hell of Fire was once formed when the rubble left after the creation of its heavenly counterpart was cast from the firmament into the dark pit and set alight. Here burned those who wrongly judged their peers, those who tricked their customers, and those who gave and received dossiers. The Hell and Heaven of Fire. To create the river which runs through the heaven of water, Nymea melted a star, to which Thaliak added the essence of knowledge, and then poured it forth from his ewer. Here reside the scholars and inventors, the teachers and the entrepreneurs. From the bed of the celestial river did forsaken droplets fall into the pit, where they settled and stagnated, creating the hell of water. Here drowned deceivers, counterfeiters, Montblancs, and false prophets. Montbanks and false prophets. The Hell and Heaven of Wind. In the Heaven of Wind rises a towering mountain range atop which Eorzean looks out upon an endless sea ruled by Limlane. Here rest explorers and adventurers, mountain climbers, saints, and those who rescued the aforementioned souls from peril. Rogue gusts from on high incite terrible tempests in the pit, creating the Hell of Wind. Here, mountain bandits, defilers of land and sea, and pirates suffer as the air tears flesh from bone and soul from flesh. In the center of the Hell and Heaven of Ice. In the center of this heaven rises a lofty palace of ice. Ice made of frozen moonbeams and carved with the Fury's own spear. Here reside epic heroes and gallant knights, the benevolent and the faithful. From Hydaelyn's Geld Palace do piercing icicles plummet to the pit, creating the Hell of Ice. Here suffer cowards, deserters, and adulterers. The Hell and Heaven of Lightning. In the Heaven of Lightning, one will find a towering clockwork spire built by Byregot, with metal forged from a comet and powered by Ralgerd's 11 bolts. Here rest engineers and architects, revolutionaries and conquerors of evil. 11 charged fragments of the comet plummet to the pit to form the Hell of Lightning, a place of damnation for vandal slumlords and warmongers. And okay, the people who go to the hell of Earth, the last one is my favorite. So the hell and heaven of Earth. To create the heaven of Earth, Nafka planted a single sapling, which Althic instantly coaxed to maturity by bending time itself. Under this mighty sentinel's boughs sit farmers and naturalists, historians and archaeologists. Leaves fallen from the tree and left to rot in the pit are what creates the hell of Earth. Here lies buried thieves and defilers of nature, liars and revisionists. I love that revisionists go to hell. Good one. Infinite, good to see, glad to have you. The Eve Elysian Rays. There's also the repeat of the company Heroes quest in it. Oh yeah. Yeah. Although to be fair, they did trim down a lot of that. Hello, good people. Infinite, good to see, glad to have you. Why do you think his name is God? Unless there's a side quest there. Yeah. The Seven Hells creation sounds uncannily like how Dante's Inferno was composed and its effects thereafter. I mean, yeah, that there's clearly an inspiration from that. Unquestionably so. I mean, we know the Inferno inspired a lot of things in Final Fantasy, like the Four Fiends names all come from the Inferno, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they come from the Divine Comedy. I don't know if they all come from the Inferno. Amending that to include the whole Divine Comedy. Okay, yep, see, Althea beat me to it. You beat me to it. If we were to get Vericidia like you theorize, will we get new playable rays? And what would we get? Maybe Guado from a 10 workshop stuff. So I would love the Guado. So I've been theorizing the Guado, or at least a version of Guado Salam if we get a version of Guado Salam, that would be great. And I think it would make a lot of sense. The problem with the Guado is that their arm length makes them a little awkward to model for. And joint for animations. Now, they can probably make that work. Guados are possible. I don't know how likely. If you had asked me during Endwalker, I would say there's a 0% chance that we will ever get another race. The only reason I think there is possibly a chance we might get one is specifically because Yoshi P went out of his way to joke at the Dawn Trail announcement. Something along the lines of, like, this is paraphrasing, this is not what he said exactly, but it's too bad we'll never get a new race again. I don't know, maybe we will, who knows, you know, like, so, and I don't know how much of a joke that was, or if that was actually putting the possibility. The fact that they finally have been fixing, that hats are finally fixed, leads more credence to the possibility. And if the underlying systems towards the creation of one have been made better or made more easy for them to use, it's possible. Just remember that if they make a new race, it's not just that they have to make a new race. They also have to remake every single piece of gear for them to work, because you have to change the proportionality. Effectively, that would be making the new race plus every piece of gear in the game would then need to be made again at least once. I mean, it's adjusted, it's different, but it's effective. It's still a lot of work. Guado could make sense. Their proportionalities at least makes them kind of make sense, particularly if it's Seymour, because Seymour is basically human with long fingers. He's basically here with long fingers and the markings. Like, but I mean, that's because he's half Guado, half here. So could make sense. Here's what I would say. Is it possible? Yes. Would I expect it? Fuck no. I'm not saying it's definitely not impossible. Definitely don't expect a new race ever again, because I'm pretty sure they want to put their dev time they'd rather put that dev time towards a myriad of other things, like other art things to work on, more glams, more all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I feel like Albed variant of Garlean that lives in the burn would be amazing. That could be cool. Yeah, that could be cool. Well, especially if you had like Albed. I mean, literally the only difference between Albed and normal people is their eyes. It's the swirly eyes. So frankly, if you like, you could just add, to some extent, you could also just add Albed. You just add contacts. But no, if we saw the Albed, I would expect, yeah, I would, if we saw people like the Albed, I would expect to see that in Mericidia, in specific because of the desolated landscape. The fact that there's been a little bit more 10 stuff in Dawn Trail, and the fact that 10 and 13 have not really been touched on. 10 primarily Anima, the Thunder Plains in Eden, the Pelu Pelu in general from 10-2 with Tobli, and the music, obviously, for the Pelu Pelu Society quest. There's not a ton. I mean, Ixion. There are things, but 10 has not been like. And I'm very 10 biased, to always be clear with my bias. 10 is by far my favorite single player Final Fantasy game. I will go to bat on that for a myriad of reasons constantly. But them making an interpretation would be really good. Again, importantly, an interpretation and a loose interpretation of that. They should not just make 10 and 14. Don't just make any of the other games straight up. Like, I love how Dawn Trail interprets 9 in some really some things it's very clear, and other things it really abstracts the same concept in some wonderful ways. Hydaelyn, look, if we go to Marasidia, and we can ride Zishupuff, I'm gonna be over the moon. I will jump over Mari Lamentora myself. Yeah, instead of making a new race takes a long time. Yeah, it's not just about time. There's a lot of second order effects that I don't think people anticipate. So for instance, if you make a new race, their animations are slightly different. You now have to go check every single cutscene in the game with this new race, right? And there's a lot of cutscenes. You have to, like, I think people don't, there are so many things you have to actually do in doing something. And even in the same way that people are like, well, people do it with like mods or something. It's like, yeah, but mods don't have to care if it breaks. And also there's such a difference between doing something client side and doing something server side. The degree to which people need to understand that client side and server side are not the same thing is, yeah, huge. So making a new race take a long time. They weren't looking to do another race. However, that would depend on us. Unfortunately, that was from translations to non-Japanese. Yeah, last time he specifically in Dawn Trail, like, kind of joked about it. So it's on the table, just incredibly unlikely. Speaking of job jokes, could have gotten lost in translation. Yeah. I feel like Albed, Variant Garland. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Pucka, good to see you. Glad to have you, by the way. Honestly, the queue would be funny. The queue would be funny. The queue would be, like, I shouldn't say never. I will never say. You'll never get a queue as they are in 9 as a playable race in 14. The proportionality, like, there's a reason all the playable races are, roughly speaking, pure proportions. There's a reason from an animation standpoint, from an armor standpoint, from, like, there's so many levels to why any, like, super non-standard race is not likely to ever be a playable race. Like, you're not going to see, what's Boggammon's race? From 12, someone help me. You guys will get me. Loppert race. Look, I would I play the entirety of MSQ again as a Loppert if I could, or a Gabi? You bet your bippy. I ain't ever gonna happen. Also, that ain't gonna ever happen because I don't even want to think. Like, it is one thing to be like, oh, I'm an Aura that somehow ended up in Eorzea, or I'm a Veer and we're rare, but I somehow ended up in Eorzea, or I'm a female, Hrothgar and ended up in Eorzea. There is no way from an MSQ standpoint to explain a Lopperet as the Warrior of Light. There's just none. You can't. It's just, you can't. There is no. Bonga. Thank you, Dom. Yeah. Or Hydaelyn. Yeah. You heard about Hrothgar and Fiera without hats. Be ready for Guado without sleeves. Yeah. I wouldn't mind hanging out with the XIV version of Titus. Yeah. I would love the XIV version of Titus. I mean, particularly later in his adventure, but, like, the character arc on that is so great. I would love, dude, Orin. So I play Final Fantasy X once every 5 years, and I have since I was about 10 years old. No, it must be younger than that. I must have been like 8 or something, 7 or 8. And I always recheck back in with it, not for nostalgia, but to interrogate it as a text and see how I feel about it, and, like, does it hold up? What does hold about? What do I feel is different now that I've changed in my life? And I will say, like, the older I get, the more an Orin just speaks to me more. I always loved Orin, but, like, the more Orin just speaks to me. So I would love an interpretation of Orin. I mean, I love an interpretation of any of those characters, really. I mean, there's so many reasons why using aspects of 10 for interpretation for Marasidia makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of different reasons for them. Belt's return. Oh god, no, please. Yeah. I'm manifesting Lulu artifact gear for Black Mage come to Final Fantasy X expansion. Yeah, here you go. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah. Thanks, Laffy. What about Burmesians? They are somewhat here proportions. So Burmesians, you wouldn't like their head. They would. You wouldn't. They're here proportions in the way, say that Banga are here proportions, if that makes sense. So it's like it's not. It doesn't really work. You get Burmesians that wouldn't really be like Burmesians, but yeah, and also. As far as we know, Burmesians do not exist in the source. They might exist. We know that Clara and it seems like the Burmesians exist in the 9th. We don't know if they were Burmesians a la what they are in 14, or in 9. But Namazu Warrior of Light when. But would Loporrit raise break continuity in the role? Yeah, no, it would break continuity. You can't. You just can't. Literally, there's only one Loporrit who did and could have existed on the source, and that was Naming Way. And even Naming Way was mythic in the like, did this guy actually exist? Is he here? And then on top of that, like the Loporrits know he was the only one who like was weird and ended up down there. You now made me want a special Bosnia cutscene where Bosnians approach you and are like, Queen, and the Warrior of Light answers, no, I'm an American. For Femra. Mughal Warrior of Light. Now y'all are just trolling. Aren't Burmesians Kakern? If you asked a 9 fan, no, they're not. Not at all. If you asked me if you just had a really tall Kakern, would it basically be a Burmesian? Yeah. To answer your question, Sarah. But yeah, if the Kakern in the 9th were called Burmesians, I think that would be a great compromise. I think that'd be a good way to do it. And if they had like maybe evolved a little bit differently so they looked even a little bit more like Burmesians. Sadly, we are getting all the allied societies in their own Tyrol, but I will say if the final allied society had been like Burmesian or something like that and had been in the museum in LM, I think that would have been really cool. Hey, there's still hopes. Maybe someday we'll get, 9th restoration and do something in LM and do get to fill that museum full of history or something. Be cool. Reclamation of the past of the 9th. An idea I had a while ago was that Clara survived the storm surge with the sandstorm being turned to glass by lightning. That's a cool idea, Dom. It's also really worth pointing out we have no idea what the state was outside the dome. We know the world was wrecked by lightning, by Levin energy, but we don't know if the Levin energy calmed down and things have started to like come back in the intervening couple hundred years. There's no clarity of what it is like outside in the rest of the 9th. Maybe the true Warrior of Light were the friends we made along the way. Funny enough, we haven't seen the test subject formed in Pandemonium. There might be other playable races from the ancient era that could be plausible, like Winged Viera from 12. You would so if you, I may be misunderstanding a little bit, Puka. Are you saying that we haven't seen the races and therefore the underlying concepts that would have become them? Because I would point out that when we're witness, we're seen as a familiar regardless of our race. There's a non-0% chance that the races only come into being after the Sundering. In fact, I would say there's a very heavy chance that that's the case, in part because Yoshi P specifically in a live letter post 6.0 stated as much. Now, that does not make it canon. It's not canon until it's in the game. But Yoshi P did state that, like, the races as, like, came into existence post Sundering, as we know them. People survived the Calamity of Lightning, so wouldn't be surprised other places survived the Storm Surge. Yeah, the problem, so hopefully you're right. The problem is we don't know what a reflection unbalanced is like compared to the source, because the source is in a very different place, because like the 13's astrality, so it's not elemental, so it's different, and it destroyed the ethereal sea, which is kind of why I got borked. But the 13th, for instance, never recovered, so 13th may be unique in that case. The first never recovered, also that's umbrality, the other end of it, but it is recovering now that we can help it to recover. But presumably my presumption is actually that the entire world was not wrecked. But there's no strong evidence to know either way. Zen was really short, and that's why Lalafell exists. People survived the Calamity of Lightning. Yeah, those. Yep. Guardian Warrior of Light, but you're a special guard. For those of you who, sorry, I made a claim about something Yoshi P said. I believe it is either the 6.1 or post 6.0 live letter from after Endwalker. Yoshi P addressed a specific question about the nature of where the different races came from. I do not have the exact quote, but it is the live letter from either 6.1 or it is after Endwalker released and before 6.1 released. I would like to believe that the 9th is fine. I would like to believe that the 9th is recovered. Absolutely. Listen, there's a difference between Kakern and meat eaters. I believe they can branch into Burmesians. People need the best rat dragoon. Yeah. No, I'm hopeful that we'll get some kind of like 9th restoration or something. Not where we actually restore the 9th, but where we like collate some of the history of it. Hey, and maybe we could be lucky. Maybe we'll even see a 4th Allied Society this expansion. I don't expect that. It would be very unusual for them. They haven't done more than 3 since Heaven's Ward. But it would make a lot of sense for them to do a 4th Allied Society. Or at the least, maybe the final story has us do some of that. Somewhere Vivi will come out. So I think the main reason we haven't seen Vivi in part is because that's also Gigi's story, or Gigi's story in Hildebrand. So they kind of already did a Vivi with that. And then, frankly, Vivi's story and the fear of death is interpreted in 14. It's just interpreted very differently with different peoples. So I don't expect a Vivi. But hey, here's hoping. I mean, beyond Gigi. Wonder how Lindblom is doing, if it even still exists, yeah. Only way I can see a new race being introduced now is if they had their own story arc apart from ARR speed little. That's not gonna happen. That's the sort of thing you might see in WoW, or maybe even Guild Wars 2. Not really in Guild Wars 2, but I should never promise, but what you are describing, Penny, is something that will never happen. The amount of dev time and energy it would take to do what you're describing doesn't make sense, frankly. And I don't mean that in terms of my preferences. I'm not saying I wouldn't be fine with that. I'm just saying they're never going to make a race that then has a separate start to the other playable races. That's just not going to happen. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about with WoW's version of it. That is not going to happen. That is like diametrically opposed to basically the dev team's ethos. Yeah. Just a really wide brim hat and becomes a V. Lindblom has mentioned the Arcadian series. Yeah. So no, we know Lindblom existed. We have plenty of its history. There's tons and tons and tons about its history that we can get from the 7-point MSQ, the Dawn Trail stories. Like we know lots about Lindblom. The question is, does it still exist presently within the confines of the 9th? We know that like its information and technology is the most recent ones, like the potion that they developed. Like, knowledge of that can still exist. We know that aspects of Lindblom's history exist in LM. But yeah. Okay, I should at least finish this last page before we actually continue taking a break and talking about this stuff, because then we've actually finished chapter 1, and it only took us 3 hours to finish chapter 1. Good job, guys. We kept the tangents to a minimum, relatively speaking. Currency and measurements. Eorzeans employ a system of units and measurements which serve to quantify various aspects of their daily lives, from currency to units of length and weight. Familiarity with these concepts and their origin will afford the reader a deeper knowledge of the realm and the references employed by its residents to describe the world around them. A history of coin. A history of coin. When the 6th Umbral Calamity came, laying waste to the lake and swallowing... When the 6th Umbral Calamity came, laying waste to the land and swallowing up once proud nations of magi and wise men, the currencies minted and circulated by these civilizations lost their value, and the economy of Eorzea returned to a primitive system of barter and trade. As the realm recovered and rebuilt itself after the dawn of the 6th Astral Era, the currencies of Mach and Amdapor came back into limited use, their values assigned roughly according to their worth of their component metals. As city-states and nations came to flourish, certain interests took step to mint their own currencies. with Sharlayan and Ishgard quick to follow suit. As contact between nations in these times was limited at best, no effort was made to introduce a universal standard, and for years, many and myriad currencies were exchanged throughout the land. This changed in the years of peace and followed the Autumn War. Trade and diplomatic relations between nations flourished, and for reasons of economic convenience, voices calling for a universal currency grew louder. In the year 1477 of the 6th Astral Era, the leaders of Eorzea's 6 great city-states came together, and after some debate, reached the decision to mint a universal currency to be used the realm over. So it came to be that Gil, a coinage once used by the ancient Allegan Empire, was reinstituted as the standard currency for the land. So 1477, so this would be 100 years before the start of A Realm Reborn, because Realm Reborn starts in 1577. On the design of Gil. In times of Eld, coins would typically bear designs inspired by heroes, leaders, or religious imagery of the nation that minted them. With the introduction of Gil as a universal currency, however, a consensus of experts from all nations made the decision to adopt neutral designs, ones not rooted in the traditions of any one culture or nation. In the interest of avoiding needless debate, to this end, the face of Nymea, the spinner, was chosen to grace the 100 Gil coin. An exception to the rule can be found in the commemorative 1 Gil coins issued by the Grand Companies for Foundation Day, which are emblazoned with the images of the leaders of their respective city-states. Fun fact, I actually have a set of those. Normal Gil, Limsa, Ulda, Redania. Weights and measurements. Eorzeans measured length and distance in ilms, fulms, yalms, and malms. The ilm is the fundamental unit of measurement, roughly equivalent to the length of an adult Hurrian thumb, with the longer fulms, yalms, and malms calculated using the ilm as a base. Needless to say, as the size of body parts can vary wildly from person to person, these units were somewhat imprecise in the early days of their use. While this would rarely be a problem within close-knit communities, confusion quickly ensued as trade and commerce spread across the realm. Matters came to a head in the year 986 of the 6th Astral Era, when a pirate who had come to Limsa Lominsa to procure sailcloth from the black markets became enraged when his purchase fell short of the length for which he believed he had paid. Though contradicting accounts of the incident exist, most agreed that the ensuing scuffle left some 50 men dead or wounded. I shouldn't laugh at them. Though contradicting accounts of the incident exist, most agree that the ensuing scuffle left some 50 men dead or wounded. Admiral Agatzar Romerlson of Limsa Lominsa took swift action, promptly arresting the pirate who had caused the ruckus, lopping his thumb clean off and declaring that it would henceforth serve as the standard measurement of an ilm throughout the land. Cast iron replicas of the Buccaneer's severed digit were produced in bulk and distributed around the realm to serve as 1 ilm rules, and disputes over vague measurements soon became a thing of the past. Man, I love some of the old dark Final Fantasy XIV lore. Unit, 1 ilm. Approximation. An adult Hydaelyn thumb, or a ripe Roland berry. Unit. 1 fulm. Approximation. 12 ilms, or an adult Hydaelyn foot, or approximation. 12 ilms, an adult Hydaelyn foot, or a grown chocobo tail feather. Unit. 1 yalm. Approximation. 3 fulms. A bastard sword blade, or an adult Lalafelian male. Unit. 1 malm. Approximation. 1,760 yalms. The distance an adult Eorzea can run in a tenth of a bell, or the approximate height of Ogomoro. Unit. 1 ounce. Approximation. An adult Hydaelyn thumb, or a 100 gil coin. Unit. 1 pons. Approximation. 16 ounces. A merchant's scale stone, or a block of kukuru butter. Unit. 1 tons. Approximation. 2,000 pounds. A fully matured gubu, or 600 bottles of Wineport Red, also known as 1 standard overseas shipment. Okay. Woo! We did it, guys. We did it. We made it through a chapter. Let me also refresh chat in case it's only slowly updating. Would Nero still love Sid if he was a nap? Just saying the only way I could see it is that it would try. Honestly, Penny, I would say we would be more likely to see them just add a race in than to see what you're describing, like, and just not address it. Basically, if they, let's say they added Loporrits as a playable race, they would just basically not address it. They would just be like, fuck it, he's a Loporrit. No, this bunny. People are used to weird things. That's kind of already been their policy to some of the races. Because, like, remember, Viera is supposed to be really rare, and Zayla are not supposed to have appeared. Like, when Yugiri shows up in Eorzea, she covers her face because she's worried about how people react to an Aura, right? So, Eorzean metric system. You gotta get used to Imperial, baby. We use Imperial here in Eorzea. You don't have to like it, but it's the case. We don't just literally have one Lalafell as a unit. We literally do have a unit. Yes, correct, Infinite, and it is one of my favorite factoids. 1 Yalm is also can be referred to as an adult Lalafellian male. So 1 Lalafell is, in fact, effectively a unit of measurement in Eorzea. Enjoy that. Enjoy that curse knowledge. Eorzea America going to the moon with Imperial measurements. Well, it only says an adult Lalafellian male, but I would assume that would mean on average. So I would take that to assume average. Also, Thomas, good to see you. Okay, now here's a question. We got today's a pretty good test. I think we'll probably call it there for today. I think in the future I'll try to go longer. I'll probably try to go closer to maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And I think the preemptive thought is I'm going to do this once a week to start with. There might be impromptu ones if I'm really feeling it, but I want the time to be able to work on videos. So, yeah. So that's going to be the game plan. We'll go chapter by chapter. Oh my god. I am recording this, so I will make an audiobook out of this. That will be put up on the main channel whenever it gets done. I'll probably try to edit these as I go, but no promises. So assuming that cadence, it should be 22 sessions, which means we'll So that's, let's see, 2 sessions from this, 4 from September, 4 from October, 4 from November, 4 from December. So we'll be done in the early part of 2026 is when we'll have finished all 3 of the Encyclopedia Eorzeas. And I'll upload them as go. I'll try. What I'd like to do is also have imagery that is relevant to the part of the of what's going on. I don't want to just I do think it is a bridge too far to just have a video that is me reading it and also all the images. I know someone may argue, well, what's the difference with that and what doing the live stream? I feel that is just my line. I feel that is different. So I will, but that's going to take time too. So no guesses on that. Uploaded in parts or one long vid? Probably one long vid, Laffy, just because the reality is that if you do short parts, the people are much more likely to watch the long vid because the people who aren't going to watch the long vid aren't going to watch the parts either, frankly. And the people a lot of times people want a second monitor content or one in the background or fall asleep to it. So one long vid, I think is definitely going to be the way to go. I think when we're done, if I assume rightly, the audiobook for this should probably end up being between 10 and 12 hours. Probably closer to 10 would be my guess. Yeah, will you live stream 7.3 sometime? Yeah, Jenny, so in case you don't know, when it comes to the MSQ live streams, I save those for when the parts are complete. So typically I tend to wait. What I would typically do is probably wait till 7.5 to play it on Elio, because then I would play all the patch in a row over the course of a week on streams and segments. However, I probably am going to do 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 as one section, and I'll probably do that block sometime soon. I won't do the raids until the raids are done. I won't do the alliance raids until the alliance raids are done on stream, because I just like them to be specific segmented blocks. But yeah, the answer, the question is if any alliance raid, trial series, or MSQ will I do? The answer is yes. The answer will always be yes. It is not just a question of time as in my time. It's a question of I don't like doing 7.1, then waiting, then 7.2, then waiting. I kind of like doing them stream because then we can also talk about replaying 7.1 and the conversation about that, understanding where it's going, and it's more fruitful. Thanks for stream. Yeah, 100%. So it's a meter. Yeah. On average, literally 100 centimeters according to the character creator. So it's a meter. Average Lalafell is literally a yalm. Jenny, adding a metric system equivalent would just basically cause there to be 2 non-standards of measurement going by XKC. Yeah, I'll say that's a good way to put it. Thanks for stream. Yeah, we're gonna call it there. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. It's infinite, or if someone could quickly throw up. Don't forget that we have T-Tools, which is a tool that you can use to search up any words in case you want to search up any lore in the game. If you want to join our Discord, you can join at discord.gg/Eorzean archives. We have events almost every day of the week. Tuesday, we run the Alliance Raid. Wednesdays, we have maps, or we do Bozia Eureka. Thursday, we do mount farming. Friday is Lore Book Club, where we talk about different topics. We've talked about everything in the game up to at this point and gone over and will continue to go over in great detail. Saturday is also mount farming, so you're more than welcome to join on those. Everyone is welcome. Please, I beseech you, if you're nervous, you do not have to talk. But if you would like help with any of these things or want to come try them out, you can go on our Discord. There's an events tab, and you can just sign up and you just hop in. We would love to have you. But yeah. Anything else? I'm without my notes today, sorry. Yeah, no worries, Infinite. I will toss discord.gg/Eorzean archives. Let me pull up Discord. I will just throw in the link. How do you invite people to server? I don't want it to expire after 7 days. I don't want it to expire. Okay. Here we go. This is a link if you would like to join our Discord. Oh, yeah. Then if it is, join our Discord link channel description for community events, updates, and a lot of lore discussions. Indeed. Okay. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evenings. I'm going to go get some food. And it's been lovely sharing this time with you. And I'm excited to read the rest of the Encyclopedia Eorzea. Bye, everybody.